professors, fellow students, and our distinguished panelists. It's with great pleasure that I, Bhavna Rukmani,
and I am Mehak Singh,
welcome you to the much anticipated Clockspeed 4.0 Operation and Supply Chain Conclave. Today, we come together as a community of learners, thinkers, and industry leaders to explore the future of supply chain management. So without further ado, let's embark on this insightful journey and set the stage for a day filled with knowledge, collaboration, and groundbreaking discussions. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you for that warm welcome. Thank you for that warm welcome, Bhavna. Now, coming to the theme of the day, reimagining supply chain 2.0, fusion of technology and sustainability. The fusion of technology and sustainability becomes not just a strategic choice, but a necessity as we navigate the complexities of the modern business world, encouraging stakeholders to co-create solutions that not only redefine operational efficiency, but also contribute to a more sustainable future. Through insightful discussions, our conclave aspires to be a catalyst for innovation, setting the stage for a supply chain ecosystem that harmonizes with the needs of the present without compromising the needs of the future.
We are privileged to have such a distinguished panel of guests, including our esteemed fathers and professors, present for this event. We invite Father Donald, Father George, Professor Kankaraj, and Professor Alokraj, and our esteemed guests to join us to light the lamp to commence this event.
Please, sir. Please.
A big thank you to everyone for lighting the way ahead of us today. We request the guest speakers to take their seats in the front row and request the professors and fathers to take their seat on the stage for the inaugural event. Professor, please join us on stage. Father.
So please.
Join us. Now for the inaugural address, it's with great honor that we invite Father George, for our esteemed director, to impart his invaluable wisdom upon us.
Good morning to you all, and a warm welcome to XLRI, all the guests, distinguished speakers, and sincere gratitude for coming to XLRI and interacting with our students on the most important topic, that is sustainability and supply chain management. Because as a human beings, our brain takes shortcuts. Shortcut is the quarterly profit. That's at most driving force. It's not, people always criticize corporate leaders. That's a human behavior. Human behavior is brain wants to spend least amount of energy to maximize the outcome. And that is what we call it as a shortcut. We take it. As a result, the long term is being compromised. And so it has to be our conscious effort, a long-term goal for the earth, for humanity as such, we have to keep in mind. Then only we will take the policies or decisions which will strengthen sustainability and also our business. It is always has to be win-win solutions. But if you are focusing too much on short-term goal, short-term benefit, then things will go in a wrong direction. In the long term, there won't be any winners. Everyone will suffer. So today, and the aim of this conference is that without losing the profit, because without making profit, no organization can run. So we are not saying that we should not make profit. We have to make, but keeping in mind the sustainability of our planet. And because there are so many leaders who still believe there is no problem with the earth, or earth warming of the earth is a natural phenomena. Takes place. It is true. It is a natural phenomena. There is a cycle in earth becoming cold and warm. But what is the irresponsible practices can accelerate it. That's what we are saying, that the nature, we cannot do anything about it. It has its own method of renewing oneself. But our human input should not accelerate in a negative directions. And that's all we can do. And that how to do it as the industry leaders and academicians, let's come together and set a path, keeping the human nature that human nature, don't undermine it. Because human nature is such that brain wants to spend least amount of energy in order to bring in more benefit. So with that words, once again, I congratulate the team who organizes this event, and they have spent lots of time putting together, contacting people and arranging everything. So in their team and the faculty in charge for this event, Professor Alok, and I thank them, and especially all the distinguished speakers for taking time and coming here as a person in order to interact with our students. So thank you very much. And once again, and this year is a Jubilee year for us, Platinum Jubilee. 1949, we started our journey, and we are into 75th year of XLRI. And as we always say that we are the first management institute in this country soon after the independent movement. And Tata Steel has played a vital role in it. In fact, the idea of starting this management school came from one of the Tata managers. So we are also gratefully remembering the forefathers, Father Enright, Father Bill Tom. They were the pioneers. Without having much money, they just ventured into it and put their heart and soul. It is their blood and sweat that what we are seeing as XLRI today. So today, let's also remember them, all the past directors, chairmen, professors, staff, and everyone, and thank God for all those blessings that XLRI has received. So thank you once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Father George, for your invaluable insights.
Now, I invite to the stage Professor Alok Raj, an associate professor in the Production, Operations and Decision Science area at XLRI Jamshedpur and POMS India Secretary. With a keen interest in application of cutting-edge technologies like blockchain, Industry 4.0, and sustainability in operations and supply chain, Professor's insights and views on the outlook of operations in the rapidly changing world will enrich us all.
Good morning, everyone. How is the Josh? So I extend a warm welcome to each one of you in this conclave. I believe the theme Reimagining Supply Chain 2.0, Fusion of Technology and Sustainability is not a choice. It stands a necessity in today's dynamic landscape. As we find ourselves at the intersection of sustainability and technology advancement, and an increasing call for sustainable practices. The convergence of these two forces become pivotal in shaping the future landscape in the supply chain. The significance of supply chain is accelerating not only at the foreign level, but also at the national level. In alignment with the PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan, the National Logistic Plan was inaugurated on September 17, 2022 by our Prime Minister. Now I want to discuss four important themes with respect to our supply chain. First, according to National Health Survey, 190 million people in India go to bed hungry every night. At the same time, 40% of the country food production is wasted annually. Now question is, as a supply chain manager or academicians, how we can design a supply chain system to eliminate such type of problems with the help of supply chain practices. Second, the role of women in the supply chain sector is a vital concern. McKinsey estimates that if women had equal participation in the supply chain market, they could contribute around 28 trillion or 26% to global GDP annually by 2025. However, there is a significant gender gap in the industry, particularly with respect to supply chain, especially in the leadership positions. So question is how we can overcome this gap and promote gender diversity in the supply chain sector. Third, supply chain play a crucial role in combating climate change, generating around 60% of all the global carbon emissions. Addressing supply chain sustainability is essential for achieving net zero emissions. India has also taken a pledge to become carbon neutral. Addressing sustainability is essential for achieving net zero emissions. So question is how we can enhance sustainability practices within supply chain to contribute to the fight against climate change. Third, which is very important for a student perspective. When I discuss with a student, I feel that there has been a noticeable decline in the student interest in the supply chain in recent times. There could be many reasons. One of the reasons is the scarcity of the supply chain specific roles in companies. This is the perception of the student. I urge industry expert to discuss the importance of supply chain role within the company, considering XLRI as an important recruiting talent in the supply chain field. I am confident that this conclave will provide a platform to address these challenges and gaps. I eagerly anticipate engaging participation and insightful discussion without any social media interruptions such as WhatsApp, Instagram, so on and so forth. Let us collectively contribute to the reimagining of supply chain for a sustainable and technological advanced future. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts, Professor.
As hosts, we would like to extend our deepest gratitude to all the speakers and all attendees for making this inaugural session truly memorable. With this, we commence the event and we would like to express our gratitude to all the speakers with a token of our appreciation.
I request Father George to extend our welcome by felicitating Mr. Chetan Sabnis, Senior Director at GEP Worldwide. Next up, Mr. Samarnath Jha, MD and CEO at Essex Supply Chain.
Next up, we have Mr. Ashish Pathak, Global Product Director, Supply Chain Business at Boston Consulting Group.
Next up, Mr. Anup Kumar Dubey, Analytics Practice Leader at Aditya Birla Group. Thank you, Father.
Now we would request Professor Alok Raj sir to please present the bouquet. Mr. Rajiv Kumar Thakral, Board Member, Strategy and Growth Advisor at multiple organizations. Mr. Rahul Sharma, CFO and VP Supply Chain, Fresenius Kabi Oncology Limited.
Mr. Amit Raman Jha, Chief Supply Chain Officer, Crest Digital Private Limited. Mr. Rudra Shankar Roy, Global Supply Chain SME and Process Transformation, IBM Thought Leader and Academic Ambassador, IBM Consulting.
Mr. Srinivas Kumar, Director at Templegate Technologies and Services Private Limited.
Thank you, Professor. Requesting Father George and Professor to take their seat. Thank you.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, as we delve into the topic of our first panel discussion, Smart Logistics, Navigating the Green Path in Supply Chain 2.0, the stage is set for an engaging conversation that intertwines innovation with environmental consciousness. In today's rapidly evolving world, the intersection of technology and sustainability has become increasingly vital. So, get ready for a deep dive into smart logistics, where cutting-edge technology meets the green ethos.
Indeed. Together, we'll explore how these strategies enhance shareholder value and contribute to a more sustainable supply chain ecosystem. Our panelists are ready to unravel the complexities and opportunities that lie ahead. Let's welcome them to share their expertise on navigating the green path in Supply Chain 2.0. This gives us immense pleasure to introduce each of the guests and request them to please join us on the panel as we call upon them.
It is with great pleasure that we welcome our speaker, Mr. Chetan Subnis, currently the Senior Director at GEP Worldwide. With 3 decades of extensive experience, Mr. Subnis has been at the helm of delivery operations in supply chain and network operations, leading a team of over 800 people. His expertise spans a diverse range of global client engagements, including sales and operations planning, inventory planning and replenishment, demand forecasting, warranty claim reimbursement, and supplier recovery. He is here today representing Mr. Shekhar Tiwari, Global Lead, Managing Services, GP Worldwide, who couldn't make it today. Thank you, Mr. Chetan, for honoring us with your presence.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Samarnath, an accomplished professional with remarkable career spanning nearly 2 decades, featuring over 10 years in CEO roles across India and South Asia. Currently, he leads as the founder and CEO of Essex Supply Chain and advises 2 PE funds for platform development and global cross-border merger and acquisition. With a proven track record of achieving growth and transformation, Mr. Samarnath's agile approach to market opportunities and disruptive thinking has resulted in numerous industry firsts. His leadership across manufacturing, shipping lines, logistics supply chain, and freight services has consistently driven significant revenue and profitability growth. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Samarnath to the stage.
Now welcoming Mr. Ashish Pathak, Global Product Director, Supply Chain Practice at BCG, specializing in global supply chain offerings in digital and AI consulting, supply chain resilience, cost transformations, and climate and sustainability transformations. With 14.5 years of experience, Ashish has a profound background in strategy and operations. Before joining BCG, he made significant contributions at Flipkart, Edgeworth Systems, and Ashok Leyland, showcasing his versatility and expertise across various sectors. Ashish's educational foundation is rooted in his studies at SPJ in Mumbai, where he honed his skills in business and management. We welcome you, sir.
Now let us welcome Mr. Anup Kumar Dubey, Analytics Practice Leader at Aditya Birla Group. With over 15 years of experience driving digital transformation initiatives, Mr. Dubey is passionate about leveraging data and analytics for impactful solutions. In his current role, he oversees critical platforms, optimizing spending and of a business group businesses, exceeding rupees 100,000 crores and contributing to efficiency and sustainability targets. With an MBA from HEC Paris and a BTech from IIT Delhi, Mr. Anup Dubey brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise. Let's hear his insights as we invite him to the stage.
We now welcome our moderator for the first panel discussion, our colleague Colonel Abhishek Dimri, to take forward the proceedings. Thank you, sir.
The line between disorder and order lies in logistics. This is the famous lines of Sun Tzu, the great Chinese strategist. I welcome on father, professors, panelists, and dear students for this thought-invigorating panel discussion with such eminent panelists who are sitting with us. As said by Frederick Smith, founder and CEO of FedEx, logistics is the art of making sure the right thing is in the right place at the right time. Logistics, as we know, affects each and every day of our life. It makes a difference. Last century, and more so last 40 to 50 years, we have seen massive industrialization. Everywhere growth is there. There is change in lifestyle. Everything is growing, profits, revenues, but one thing is suffering, a planet Earth. His Holiness Dalai Lama has said, it's a collective and individual responsibility to preserve and tend to the world in which we all live. We have to save our planet. Once again, I welcome Chetan, Samar, Ashish, and Anup. Let's have a round of applause for them. Now, setting the ball rolling, the first question which I'll be asking will be common for all the panelists. I'll be requesting for a thought and views. Major events in recent year like COVID-19 pandemic, geopolitical tensions in the sea lines of communication, tension between Russia and NATO, resurgent China are causing major disruptions on global scale. How smart logistic and supply chain 2.0 adapting to these challenges? And how are these events impacting India's logistics sector? We can start with Chetan, please.
So good morning. As Colonel said, right, the supply chain in a current world is becoming more complex and complex. Correct. One is of course the disruption which is caused by COVID, but other than that, the major complexity comes from the consumer behavior. Correct. Today's consumer is very demanding. They need product changes very often. Correct. They need newer products. They need products tailored to their needs rather than a standard product. Correct. So that is becoming more demanding. So how a supply chain can become nimble and agile to react to those. Correct. One of the great example which probably you can think of is Zara. Right. Their product lines continuously keeps changing to suit tailor the consumer needs. Right. And that also disturbs our pockets because my wife essentially shops in Zara, so it does impact the household as well. The other thing is constantly need or constantly changing the geopolitical conflicts. Correct. Take a case of US Russia. Correct. Take a case of China and US tension, and the need arises out of diversifying the supplier bases rather than a single source. Correct. A very prominent example is Apple moving its major manufacturing facility and looking also towards Vietnam and India. Correct. It's also India benefit to India, considering our stable political regime over last 10 years, the investor friendly environment out there. So you see a lot of organizations have started investing in India, right? And that also helps you to lie back on a wider supplier base rather than just staying under one country, right? Indian logistics sector, obviously, and overall supply chain sector is definitely impacting and helping to do that, right, towards the green supply chain. I think Samar will be able to tell you more because he's in the middle of the things, right? He runs his own organization. He's been to logistics sector for a while. So I'll call Samar to talk about it more.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello. Yeah. As I heard Abhishek mention about, mentioning about whether it's the COVID pandemic or it's the post-pandemic effect or the global tension. One thing that has opened up that there's a huge gap. There's a huge exposure that has come out in the global supply chain, including in the country. And I think if you look at supply chain, and I believe this is a students' interaction last night I had with some of you, you all come with 5 to 7 years of average experience, and you must be able to relate back to your former organization where you worked to see that, traditionally the entire supply chain has been focusing around 3 of the broad area. One is about services. Second, they talk about quality and cost, which is the top, which is how they've been thinking about. But what this situation has opened up is predominantly new things have started emerging. We're talking about resilience. We're talking about agility, which somebody just mentioned about. Can you be more agile? How do you look at those things? And of course, sustainability. So if you have to add these things together to take it forward and future-proof how you want to do that. And I think that is fundamentally which is coming out. And you guys, as going back to your new assignment or new jobs, I think that's fundamentally you need to look at in a much more holistic way than trying to look at in that situation. Now, one more thing that I observe, since I interact a lot of customers across sectors, I don't see them moving beyond procurement and cost. And I think fundamentally there is the challenge there. And I think it is also a good time, and I'm happy because there is these discussions happening in various forums at the country level, global level, because this is a topic which never really got attention in the CEO's profile or the boardroom or even to the newsroom areas. Today, I think a lot of supply chain executives are finding themselves in a a new area, new dimension. They're getting a mandate, they're getting the empowerment, they are allowed to make real change, and investments are coming. And I think it's a once a generation opportunity for them to make sure this is done the right way. And I think that is fundamentally what I see a difference. I think he gave a fantastic example of Zara. And one company that I follow is Toyota. And this particular is etched to my memory. In 2011, Japan faced the worst earthquake and tsunami. I think you all were probably half the age that time. But if you would have read, and it's wise edge because I was just 2 days back with my family holidaying there. And we came back, so that remained a memory with that place and the example that I saw in Toyota. Guess how much time they took to come back? Can anybody think about that? How much time they took to come back in production? 6 months. Toyota, world's example that the people follow their style, their production, their methodologies. What they did, they went back, revamped their entire production. They revamped their regionalizing the supply chain. They re-looked at the tier 1, tier 2 suppliers on which the dependencies were there. They did that. Guess what? 2016, another earthquake. How much time did it take this time? 2 weeks. They were prepared. They went beyond tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 because they were prepared for situation. I think this is what today, when we talk about the global turmoil in all parameters that Abhishek spoke about, I think it is a lot about all of us coming together and the respective organization that you're going to work with, look at those things closely. And that is what will make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Samar. I think Samar just summarized one of the articles that I co-authored as part of BCG, that future of supply chain. So building the future of supply chain has typically, we have seen these 4 legs that we talk about. And this is not just one research or one company or one client example. This is like a tendency that we have been seeing in the market. The future of supply chain will have, it's a digital and AI driven, it's resilient, it's sustainable. So these 3 legs are digital, resilient, sustainable. And the 4th very important leg is the cost. Traditionally, we have understood supply chain, as he was also mentioning, in a very narrow cost focused manner, right? And that's why it has never been given that much importance in the boardroom discussion or a CXO CEO kind of discussion, because what you can do with a cost, you don't want to increase cost, you always want to reduce cost. What we have seen in the last, let's say 3-4 years since pandemic, now the discussion has shifted to the boardroom, and supply chain has been in consistently top 5 CEOs talked items in last 4 years. What does this mean is now supply chain offers a strategic advantage to the companies who are digitally driven, who are more resilient, who can respond to the disruptions faster and better and come up really strong. That is giving companies an edge over their peers, to acquire shareholders, to acquire new customers. So in that sense, if you do your supply chain right, you are going to be an extremely, power force in the market, not just in terms of, customer satisfaction, but also in terms of your overall brand value, market valuation, shareholders value, and also customer acquisitions. I just want to focus to this question. I think you asked about the disruptions hitting, right? So recent disruptions were always there, right? I mean, some natural, some human cost, and they will be there. It's just that since pandemic, people are more cognizant of these disruptions coming in. So 2020 COVID hit. 2021, we faced a global semiconductor crisis. 2022 was a mix of global trade war with continued semiconductor crisis. Also, the different waves of COVID still kept hitting various parts of the country. The bottom line is disruptions are now going to be frequent with a bigger and deeper impact, but shorter. So that's the bottom line. We have been seeing the trend in the world. It can be of any type of disruption. The second theme I would like to talk about, every disruption will leave countries, companies, economies, institutions, either a winner position or a loser position. You cannot, there is no third position. So now the question is, which part would you like to be after the disruption hits? And are you preparing for that? And I assume that answer would be no, I don't want to be loser, right? You want to be staying in the winner side of it. So be it a company, economy, countries, institutions. Are you doing right steps so that you come out as a winner out of every disruption? India, in that sense, is, you know, is a green in some part of it and red in some part of it. The good thing is, at least we are trying to make some proactive approach towards it. So I think my key messages here would be the future of supply chain would be digital, resilient, sustainable, and cost effective. That's it's how it should be. Disruptions will be there. If you manage disruptions well, you strengthen your position to be a winner well. You have to make a very proactive approach to do that. Supply chain is now within the top 3 or 5 most talked about topic in the boardroom discussion. And, you know, I speak with a lot of them, and this is what now haunt the CXOs, that is my supply chain is ready for the future. So that's the third thing. And the fourth is, like, it's a very bright spot for people like you, institutions like this, who are creating the, you know, managers for the future. It's now considered as one of the most sought after skill in the market. If you have right sort of skills approach to develop what company is, you know, what companies are aspiring to build for the supply chain of the future. And, you know, as an economy, we are also in a great demographic advantage. So these are some 3 or 4 key things that I wanted to talk about. Disruptions will be there, but we have to pick a side where we want to build our next future of supply chain is. So with that, I transfer to Anu.
And sorry. So Ashish brought a very good point about being proactive to disruptions, right? And with digital intervention happening, right? The supply chain practitioners are well poised. And I just wanted to give you one example, which we went through with one of the client, right? The general election is a disruption as well, right? In some of the industry, your product movement is stopped. You are not able to sell your product, and especially alcoholic beverages, right? So during 2019 general elections, right? We planned out proactively that how we will build up the inventory so that we can go to the market quickly when it opens. That means investing additional money, blocking your working capital, but it gave a first mover advantage to the organization. It could grab about 2-3% share point in a fiercely competitive Indian market, led to higher revenue, and that working capital investment was worth, right? So I just wanted to talk to you a real life incident so that you can, you know, resonate well with what he just talked about it, right? So that's most important in fiercely right now competitive market. First mover advantage is very, very important. So you need to use that proactive way to fight those disruptions. Yeah. Thanks, Ashish. Sorry, over to you. Sorry to.
No, great point, Chetan. Just a couple of things that I want to add. You know, most of the things are covered. In supply chain, resilience is very important. And as Ashish mentioned, digital and data plays a very critical role. But what enables is all of this is partnership. You have to partner. There are so many startups coming up. There are so many matured industry players. One cannot do it everything by itself. So partner as much as possible. So that's one. Second, I think Ashish also touched upon it. I think maybe in other companies, it is probably the third or fourth most important topic. But right now in Aditya Birla Group, it is the most important topic. And it is the most matured platform that we have, the logistics platform that we have within the organization. A very specific example I will give to to this particular topic. This conflict in Hamas that is happening very, very recently. This has impacted two of our businesses very, very closely. Any guesses which are those two businesses? No, not cement. Cement is mostly domestic. Yeah. So pulp and fiber and textile businesses. Most of our exports go outside India, primarily to the Europe channel has been impacted a lot, which means timelines have increased, costs have increased. And these two businesses, while I do not really understand the supply chain dynamics a lot, but these two businesses came to us and asked us, how can we reduce the cost, logistics cost? And in India, primarily, at least within India, the distribution is like this. Roughly 65 to 70% would be road transport, 20 to 25% would be railway, and probably less than 5% would be inland waterways or cargo-related transports. So they came back to us asking us, how can we manage the time and the costs? Basically, how can we leverage the multimodal setup at the back end, the road, railway, and the waterways to help reduce the overall cost, and to manage it to the extent possible, which will allow them to stay competitive in this landscape, because your customers are not going to budge on if they're if the timelines are getting increased, that means they are incurring cost, right? Those costs, they are not going to pay you for it. What your system, your supply chain should be agile enough to to manage those costs, to reduce this cost, to reduce the impact of those costs as much as possible. And that's where data, your partners, your data can tell you, okay, what needs to be done, but something has to be rolled out at the operational level. And that's where a lot of partners, some are the kind of expertise that they provide, and actually laying that out in a very short time, as quickly as possible, plays a very, very important role. So that's a very specific example I'm saying that we have worked upon in the last 3 to 4 months, how we can use multimodal, how we can shift from road to rail and inland waterways transport to reduce cost, to manage and the timelines as well. And again, both rail and waterways transport are actually more sustainable than road transport.
Just like in 1 minute, I would like to let me give a very concrete definition of what supply chain resilience means, so that it just stay at a keyword level and it completely sticks onto the group's brain here. So supply chain resilience, and of course, like we have very broad definition from different body of knowledge. In bottom line, we have two things that we define supply chain resilience to be: the ability to predict a disruption, like how fast, how accurate, and how well in advance you can predict a disruption. And it could be, a Red Sea disruption, or a Suez Panama Canal disruption, semiconductor crisis, pandemic, or whatever. So the ability to predict it faster, accurate, and well in advance. And once the disruption hits, so you cannot avoid all types of disruptions. Once the disruptions hit your organization, how less it put you in the, how less impact it has on your organization, and how fast you can come out of it. The summation of these two is what we call as resilience, supply chain resilience index, right? And it's the most common understood agreeable definition, with World Economic Forum, with body of knowledge like BCG, McKinsey's, and Bain's, the different types of. There is a Supply Chain Resilience Institute. So how fast you can predict, how fast you can recover. That's the definition of the supply chain resilience. And very interestingly, after every disruption, we do this survey and we find constantly those 25, 30 companies come up in all these parameters. You know, those companies are like Toyota. Toyota is a great example for that, right? Apple, Tesla, especially for automotive. This time, Tesla, last time the semiconductor crisis, and we ran the survey, Tesla came even couple of notch higher than the Toyota because it has less parts. It makes EVs, right? So it has, I have worked in Ashok Leyland, so you know, I know for a truck manufacturing, you need 60,000 bill of material part number for one SKU. And we had like 40 SKUs, right? Tesla has just 1,500. Can you imagine? Right. So it's 1,500 versus 60,000 for a automotive internal combustion engine. Less parts to manage, less suppliers to manage, less supply chains to manage. And first time I have seen that Tesla has beaten, you know, companies like Toyota. Of course, Toyota is much ahead than in its IC engine peers. So that's resilience in the real life, how it works, right? How fast you can predict, how fast you can come up when it comes out. Interestingly, the outcome is, what does it pay to be supply chain resilient? The pay is, we see 20% up to 20% market share holding you can gain. So imagine like peak pandemic, lockdowns are everywhere, and Amazon is killing in the market, right? And it has gotten customer like no company has. Of course, a little bit of shift or help from the digital and technology, but their deliveries are on time. Their OTIF, what we call in supply chain, right? So on time in full performance, out of stock has reduced. So that's what agile supply chain does. That's what resilient supply chain does to capture the market once the disruption hits. And like I can go on talk about these many examples, but that's what like being supply chain resilience that pays off really well if you are prepared. So just to, you know, summarize and over to you.
Very aptly put by panelists. So it's rightly said, journalists talk about strategy, while professionals talk about logistics. That is the importance of logistics. Now the next question, again for common for all the panelists. Combating climate change and its impact on planet is an agenda which has been undertaken with due seriousness by all the countries. We have seen all the leaders of world are so worried. So how can Green Path in Supply Chain 2.0 contribute in achieving these sustainable development goals and thereby safeguard our planet for future generations? We can start with Chetan, please.
I think let's start from there.
Let's start with Anup.
Again, I'll probably speak a lot with from the context of data science and all, given that's my core area. But in supply chain, now we have started to focus. See, in corporates, and that's from my experience, the focus is still a lot more on the reporting side, right? Traditionally, we have been, how well we can report to our authorities, which they can then use to report to the central UN entities, for being compliant to the sustainability targets and all of those things. So that has been the typical approach. But what has changed in last 2-3 years, and I'm again speaking from my experience within Aditya Birla Group, is there is a lot more focus on making sure we build the underlying infrastructure that can lead to a higher impact and more initiatives being taken up in the sustainability areas. And giving a very specific example, with Hindalco, we have partnered with Ernst & Young, and we are now building a sustainability data lake. Now imagine the kind of effort that goes into building that data lake. You need to have external data sources to bring in insight as to what's happening out there. You need to have your ERP data coming in. You need to have your partners' data coming in. Now with all of these different types of data that is coming in, you have to synchronize, harmonize those data, and then make it available for different use cases, right? I'm not just talking about a single use case. It could, those data can be used across different types of, different types of initiatives. And giving a very simple example again, in logistics for Ultratech, we have built something called a network optimization tool. I'm just giving you a brief context over here. Ultratech is a cement company, right? But it's actually a supply chain. The whole game is all about supply chain. It is roughly about 15,000 crores is spent on logistics there, outbound logistics I'm talking about. And a majority of that is, again, you can divide it into a primary logistics, 65%, rest secondary logistics. Now, we build a solution called network optimization just to make sure that we reduce the total distance. If you reduce the distance from your source to the customer, you're basically reducing your carbon emission, you're reducing your you're reducing cost, you're reducing carbon emissions and contributing to the sustainability targets. But now the same data, that network data that we have, is now being asked by Hindalco. And can anyone guess why? Hindalco produces a lot of red mud in the manufacturing process of aluminum. And alumina, bauxite gets converted to alumina and then to aluminum. There's a lot of red mud gets used. Now those red muds have to be either sent to landfills. Now if you keep sending to landfills, you are basically violating all the norms. Your plant will basically be shut down in some time. Now Hindalco do not want that. So what do? They need to find a company which can take those red muds and use it in their manufacturing process. Now, Ultratech cement manufacturing happens to be a process which take red muds in its clinker processes and all. Now, that underlying data, the network of where the plants are located, right? There are 60 plus plants, and mapping that to the plants of Hindalco and then managing the supply chain around it is where the cross-sharing of the data comes in. So the data lake that is getting built on in Hindalco will now be leveraged to map onto the network optimization tool that we have built in and the underlying data that we have built in Ultratech to build a supply chain network that will allow them to transfer their waste, red mud, from Hindalco to Ultratech, and both of them gain in the process. One gets a raw material used in the manufacturing process, another, rather than sending their waste into a landfill, they basically are disposing off to another tubular group for consumption. So what is happening here? The key is when we are talking about agility here, the key is we need to have the underlying data technology, set up in a way which allows for that agility to happen. And so, we have to think upfront, like Ashish mentioned, we have to predict what's going to happen, and you cannot be able to predict everything, which means you have to put a lot of thought process behind as to how you set up your data, how you set up your technology infrastructures to allow so many use cases which you cannot think of right now, but that those use cases might come in future. And your systems and your data should be allowed to do that.
Great point, Anup. Actually, this network optimization example is the classic one, right? I mean, how we think about sustainability in our supply chain. It starts with network optimization in most of the industries. I think in order to discuss this particular question about green supply chains or supply chain sustainability, let me start with the fact that it's not even company's choice to be a sustainable supply chain company or not. Government will mandate it sometime sooner or later. So it will be highly regulated industry like biopharma or pharmaceuticals, right? Where government will be on top of you, overseeing how much carbon emissions you are putting, how much water wastages, how much landfills and whatnot, right? So it's very soon will be mandated, and it's already being mandated, right? So India as a country has taken net zero target up to 2080, and we had Paris climate agreement, which will be shifted to from 2030 to 2050 because of the whole COVID situation in between. So it is already happening in the global level. It's already happening in the North American and European organization, where regulators are taking like active role in companies' supply chains decisions, right? And they don't care about your profits, your KPIs that you talk about. What they want to talk about: are you reducing emissions? Are you how much of tons of quantities you are sending back to the landfills, and so on and so forth. And government will be so ruthlessly on top of these things that companies need to work right now. And good thing is, India is not behind. Don't take that India is lacking behind. Companies like ABL and others, especially in the consumer CPG and food and beverage industries, even in countries like India, clients, companies are taking much more proactive approach than some of the other industries. So that's number one. Government will mandate supply chain sustainability. You want it, you don't want it, you have to make it, right? Sooner you make it, again, it goes back to the point, the better you'll be prepared to take advantage of it in terms of competitive advantage, in terms of customer satisfaction, and it will not hamper your profitability KPIs as well. So that's number one. Number two, even consumers will boycott you if you are not a supply chain sustainable company going forward, right? Especially this trend we have seen from our marketing, pricing, and costing side of things, that Gen Zs or the late millennials, they are very proactively asking for sustainable products, right? Be it packaging, be it food, be it any day-to-day consumption products. And they don't mind paying a couple of dollars more, even if it costs more. But they are making this conscious choices, right? I mean, a decade back, when I was completing my master's from SPGen, right, all the plastic bottles used to be here and there, right? And that's the very good observation I'm seeing now. It's replaced by all the bottles and the steel. So it's all reusable. And it is happening very consciously with the younger generation coming in. So what if the consumers will not want your product? So let me put this way and summarize the discussion. What if 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, government will make it mandatory to have something, a logo or a very prominent that says, it's supply chain sustainable product, and consumer will only buy the supply chain sustainable product. The companies who are not working today in those directions will have significant hit in their profitability margins, and they will completely wiped off, right? And classic examples I will give, there used to be a company called Vanaspati Dalda, right? I'm not sure how much of you have heard of it. The yellow one, exactly, right? And government mandated to have trans fat and saturated fat percentage written over it. And they had this whole campaign about, it's not good for you. It increases your overall cholesterol level, and which is not healthy. The moment it started advertising it and made it mandatory to have all the percentage figures on the label, people have stopped buying it. And it used to be market leader with close to 69% market share in the the whole frying item category, let me put that way. So something similar will happen in the sustainable supply chain and consumer product space from 5 years, 10 years down the line. And companies needs to make effort today. And good thing is they are, including in India, much more in Europe, and also North America part of it. So that's my take on it, right? It's time to act is now. You want it, you don't want it, companies want it, they don't want it, it's going to happen. So that's my take on supply chain sort of sustainability. And that's why it's one of the very strong pillars of the future of supply chain that I spoke of, right? So that's my take.
Thank you, Ashish. Let me spin this off in a different direction for a moment and tell you from the experiences of meeting the customers, both at the my past assignments and with my current engagement. We hear, we talk, we do a lot of things, but it is really has to have a long-term plan. Now, when I meet the CXO levels and CEOs there, I end up finding two groups there. One group of CEOs are set of CEOs who are very charged up, create a vision of a very audacious target, and they were going to rally the whole troop behind to make it happen. They will do that, and they have a lot of boardroom space to make those things happen. And then you have another set of CEOs and CXOs. You will find them, they're contemplating on that, they're thinking about that, they're trying to go more deeper into it, and they actually are very cautious. They don't want to overcome it, because that has repercussions into a P&L, right? End of the day, there's answerability to board, answerability to the stock market. So you have live such situations you'll come across. And happy when you guys have town hall in the respective companies, and you go raise those questions, ask those questions during the town halls. And I think those are where you're going to contribute by building those momentum as a younger generation. I think that's important for you to do that. My thought is that there's a path in between the two extremes, and you need to look at how you as an organization are going to take that forward. I think a lot of companies are still struggling to form a baseline. Where are they? Where do they stand today? In the sphere of their own plant, or in sphere of their own stores. I think the whole activity starts on there. Just like we will go back to our own homes and think about throwing something in a paper in a dustbin, or trying to leave it loitering around. I think it all starts there. So we create that baseline, and then you draw at a step to where do you want to head? What's the target or the goal that you're setting for your organization? Because once you articulate that, the whole organization knows it. You're making sure those things are embedded into your discussions, your topics, your everything. And then how do you monitor that? How do you track that so that you are actually living onto that area, and the discussions are becoming an enterprise-wide discussion, not in silos alone? I think those are fundamentally which is important, and that's how you're going to be able to address the larger cause on a long-term basis for the organization and the earth. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. Before I actually little speak about it, just a lighter moment, right? Dalda has been, doing the recycling, reusing, stuff much earlier, right? Those empty dabbas used to get sealed and used as a bio to learn swimming, if you would have seen across, right? So when he referred to Dalda, I just thought about how currently we are back to the same sustainable supply chain practices, right? It's becoming very important, and organizations are embracing to it, correct? For example, how do I optimize the routes, correct? And move the maximum product on the one shipment to reduce the carbon footprint, correct? How do I reduce my transport transport time and transport areas, correct? I'll give an example where one of the client using the digital transformation, we had built end-to-end visibility of their consignment across rail, road, air, ship across the globe to ensure whether the consignment is on time or is getting delayed, so that the last mile can be organized accordingly and not wasted there, saying that, okay, this consignment will allow you on X date, correct? So the digital intervention does give you that benefit. And we had integrated everyone, the manufacturing plants, the third-party suppliers, the transporters, to ensure that, and the shipping lines, correct, to get the visibility across globe, so that the last mile can be automatically planned and not just wasted. It also leads to keep your end consumer informed, right? And whether it is coming late or coming early, to improve their trust in you, correct? The other areas could be use alternate fuel, alternate energy, right? Instead of traditional electricity on water or generated, how can you look at solar or wind, right? There are a lot of organizations like UK has been very pioneering into solar and wind energy, correct? Including in India, if you are aware that at home, if you have independent houses in Mumbai, unfortunately, we don't have, but not at all places, but where you have independent houses, how can you build a solar power and government electrical service provider will give you discount on that if you are reusing that energy, correct? The another classic example is sharing the infrastructure. Toyota and Suzuki are sharing their base, right, of the cars, right? Your urban cruiser and I think Vitara has the same structure, right? Only after that the Toyota will differ into design and Suzuki used to define. So you don't have to invest into different manufacturing plants. How can you use one infrastructure to get the body of the car and then just rebuild your brand on that? Another key thing is using the recycled material, or this is becoming very, very, and the way he pointed out, right, Gen Z or late millennials, right? I'll bring out a very good example of Adidas, which are using the ocean plastic to create or manufacture shoes. Right? A classic example of how you nurture certain practices is, it's coming out in one of my questions next, but how you influence the users to think through about the green stuff, right? How you protect planet, how you reuse the material. So it's becoming very, very important. Specifically, the other last is blockchain, right? How you integrate your suppliers, the supplier of suppliers, also to the consumers, right? To track the source of the product, and how you can get, it's very important for circular economy, correct? Or circular supply chain, sorry, not economy, but circular supply chain. I'm sure you would have heard about it or you have read about it, right? That how do I use my end product again, or waste again into products, into manufacturing, thus by helping the planet, yeah, reduce the carbon emissions. Yeah, thanks. What do you, Colonel? Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
I want to add one point here. Chetan mentioned about alternate sources. For example, you can do route optimization, reduce the lead distance, save carbon emission. You can go for alternate fuels. But then there are also industrial processes where it gets very difficult. For example, the smelting process in Hindalco. It's a very energy intensive process. Not just intensive, it needs very consistent source of energy. Now, renewable energies, right? They are not they're not very consistent source of electricity. So which means, you need to find ways to make sure that the current that is used or getting supplied in your electrolyte process is basically, maintains a certain level of thresholds, has its, so that the electrolysis process, because if it stops, then the restarting the whole process is actually more energy intensive than, maintaining that operation. So again, to do that, there are a lot of, you have sensors, you capture data, you make sure you keep alternating between your, sources of energy. So you maintain that entire thing, through having a very optimized electrical grid that is there. So just adding one more point, that there are a lot of industrial processes that do not straight away allow for you to replace, fuel-based energy with, renewable energy. There are operational nuances sometimes that comes into picture where you have to really, underline, streamline your, technology around it to make sure that the process or the operations are not disrupted.
Very aptly put. So a logistician needs to keep innovating. Logistics, it's a 9-letter word which halted advance of Hitler in Battle of Stalingrad and Alexander the Great at River Indus. Now moving on to the second phase, where I'll be asking pointed question to the panelists. Starting with you, Summer. Exploring disruptive innovations. What radical new approaches can be undertaken to overall traditional supply chain models for the mass adoption of green logistics? I request you if you can elaborate with some examples.
When you speak about green logistics, what comes to my mind is, what are the efforts taken to manage the environment or a social or a governance area, and that how does that translate into throughout the life cycle of goods and services? And how does it start from when you do a procurement, or sourcing and the transportation to coming inside, feeding the line, producing? How does it go? What does the cycle go there? I think that's what comes to mind. But here I don't mean when we say goods and services, the financial cost of it. I'm not talking about that. But what you have to realize in the entire supply chain end to end, the kind of toll it takes on the environment, toll on the workers on the floor where they work in, the energy, the natural resources. I think, and all these things can only be captured, like exactly as you mentioned in terms of the data analytics. Do you have the data? Or it begins there. And if you have the data, then you are able to actually protect the company's growth. You're able to protect the profit. You're able to create a system of resilience, reliability, and you're able to save the company's brand reputation with the community that you're working on, or the area that you function on. I think that is fundamentally where it comes to there. But if you really want to do a mass adoption, a move from very traditional to this area, I think fundamentally 3-4 things come, and that's very hard for a CEO or the board to accept. But I think that's a way they'll have to make or ease for the CEOs or the CXOs is, can we have point one? Can we have a new definition of ROI, which is based on sustainability initiatives? Can you do that? When we say that, they are intangible things, right? Will your brand becoming more eco-friendly draw more customer loyalty? Will it bring better innovation? Will it bring better work life for the staff? Whether it's warehouse, transport, or your office, will it add to retention? Or if you talk about risk management area for the ROI, do you think being better prepared, better compliance will help in regulatory to you de-risk yourselves? So I think that is fundamentally very important. Are you ready to change the definition? And I think that's a discussion the boardroom needs to have in order to really look from that perspective. The other thing which comes to mind is there's a need to draw, I mentioned the point earlier, there's a need to draw a very holistic roadmap around sustainable supply chain and transformation, and which has to go beyond the procurement and cost. And I think the procurement and cost has to be looked in terms of the wastages of materials, draw efficiency there, then trying to cut through the corners in the supply chain actual thing. And I think that is fundamentally which I still see companies more in procurement still continuing to look at that, not focusing on the other aspect of it. If you look at that aspect, the other examples that would come out, will that help your market share? Will that help your stock price? Look at those areas. Those are the areas where you actually want to have a larger gain than a supply chain, because on average, if you look at supply chain costs by sectors, it will never climb more than 5, 6, 7%. It'll be a very small number. So you need to think in a much more holistic way and draw that transformation, company-wide, if you really want to get into that. Third, I think is it's a long game, and companies have to play this. There has to be a generational handover from the management to management, which is where I think you have to prepare for that. But it begins now, as all the panelists mentioned. It has to begin now, and how do you assess that, which I mentioned? Where do you see the entire supply chain sustainability fits in your organization? Where does it fit? Which sectors they fit? Each sectors may have a different set of things that may happen. How do you draw from that a kind of a visibility or traceability of your entire journey? And that again goes back to data science analytics in terms of bringing those tables to be questioned or challenged or improved or improvised on that area. I think these are the fundamental things that we look at. If you're able to do these things, I think the last play comes technology. So if these three things come together, then you could actually get all the stakeholders in the organization, and including your vendor partners, bring them together to have a complete enterprise-wide platform transformation. And here, when I say it's not going to be just one tool, it's going to be demand and supply forecasting tools. You will have your weather reports, you will have your vendor partners information, you will have the emission norms. You'll take all these things and find an orchestrated tool, which is exactly what he was mentioning about some time back, kind of a control tower, which actually helps you slice through and look at each of those data points, look at those metrics, look at those vendor KPIs and scores that you're drawing, and get that thing up. I think that is fundamentally what I think is gonna change things. So overall, I think to close, I think the supply chain sensibility is a plentiful job. There's a lot of things to be done there. I think it's always a difficult task and difficult area. So there's very natural tendency to postpone it, which is the situation. But if we could start now and begin to look at it in a very earnest way, I think that's a way forward for us to adopt mass green logistics.
Thank you. It's aptly said, prosper together or perish together. Now moving on to Ashish. Major technological upheavals like artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, etc., are transforming businesses and processes at a very rapid pace. How can companies utilize these disruptive technologies to achieve the goal of efficient and profitable organizations while significantly reducing logistic environmental footprints? Ashish, please.
I mean, my short answer would be companies, they don't have any choice. They have to utilize data analytics and the upcoming technology to do not only sustainability, but anything that we just spoke of, be it resilience, be it cost, be it people, process, digital transformation. For everything that's significant, for everything that's valuable, the bottom line starts with digital and technology, right? And it's not just today's tendency. It has been from like last couple of decades. It started in early 90s, and it continues to be one of the most important enablers in any industry and in any functional domain, be it banking, be it private equity, be it supply chain, operations, marketing, sales, pricing, costing, strategy, finance, whatnot. The bottom line is we have to appreciate the kind of enablement it brings into the value chain. Good thing is supply chain is one of the most important beneficiary of it. And the reason for that is supply chain, unlike other functions like strategy, like marketing, it's always hardcore data driven, right? We used to do network optimization even before the softwares like LlamaSoft and Gurobi. We used to do it in the Excel solver. Before that, I'm sure people would have been doing it in the calculators as well, right? So that's the beauty of it. The data gives you a huge enablement. Now, to specific question, how it will further impart its importance in the supply chain sustainability, right? Typically, when I work with my clients, which are some of the most prominent CPG and retail and automotive and industrial goods player, process industries, typically 4 things I have seen the path for sustainable supply chain transformation. There is a 5th thing as well. Let me quickly brief touch upon those, right? So first thing, it starts with creating that transparency, right? And Anup talked about it. Samar, you talked about it. It's basically creating that control tower layer, creating that transparency layer. What you cannot measure, you cannot improve. It starts with that. Do you have right data foundations? And the classic example is, you have been doing network optimization from last 20 years. Why it hasn't occurred to you that reducing the distance will also reduce my emissions, or taking a different route will also impact my less truck movements or less wastage while moving, right? So now we have started associating those KPIs, the sustainability KPIs, with our more prominent supply chain KPIs, right? So the first thing starts with creating that transparency layer. Now, the second thing is, once you have created, by the way, it's not easy. I'm sure the industry experts would agree. Bringing a control tower is on paper, it's the easiest thing. On ground, it's like one of the most challenging things. But it starts with there. I mean, you have no choice, right? The second thing is, once you created the transparency layer, how are you mapping it with your use cases? So the second step becomes the mapping of how much of carbon emission is happening at which node of the supply chain. Is it just carbon emission that you are concerned about, or also the water and the air pollution kind of a thing? So bringing all the ESG, what is important for your organization? So mapping the important KPIs and use cases to that transparency layer, so that you are not holistically seeing the ocean, you are seeing the islands there, right? So that you can take action towards those islands, right? So that's the second thing. The third thing is identifying what next if you have identified those islands. So is it supplier based? So you will enable your supplier ecosystem. Is it consumer based? You will enable your consumer ecosystem. So what is that you need to do in order to get to that island and do something that you want to do? So that's the third bit. The fourth bit is basically creating an ecosystem or enabling that ecosystem. And it goes much more beyond your four walls of the organization. It talks about, and nothing can be done without the ecosystem partners, right? You need a risk ecosystem partner. You need a customer ecosystem partners. You cannot do all the things alone, right? So how you are making sure your mapping, your transparency, your prioritized use cases are also the priority of your ecosystem partners, your supplier ecosystems, your vendor ecosystems, your customer, your logistics, your any type of ecosystems that you are working with, right? How you are ensuring that. And the fifth and the last bit is, and I can't agree more that Samar, you mentioned this, like how you are changing your mentality towards supply chain sustainability and bringing the right KPIs in your day-to-day change management and process and people, the way you evaluate people, the way you evaluate your own work. Is it just on papers? It's just, that government has a stick, that's why you are doing it? Or you are genuinely, proactively, you want to build that sustainability culture, right? You have been talking about supply chain sustainability and climate and planet Earth, and you are still like you want hundreds of printouts to submit for a reimbursement to happen, right? Or the claim to happen, or you are still giving schedules, a hard copy schedules to your suppliers, right? These two are completely different things. Are you really adapting in your ways of working in your day-to-day operations, right? So these are the 5 things: creating the transparency layer, mapping those transparency or the valuable transparent data and analytics into your prioritized use cases. Third thing is engaging suppliers. Fourth is enabling ecosystem. And fifth is actually commit to what you are saying, basically bringing your KPIs, your ways of working, your people and process transformation according to what you have been committing. So I think these are the steps that we have been seeing.
Yeah, and another point on an ecosystem, right? In order to sustain your commitment or your organization's commitment, you need to embed your targets into those ecosystems also, which means you need to establish green contracts with your supplier, not forcing, but agreeing to, he's sticking to certain environmental standards while manufacturing your inputs, correct? Also a sustainability factor in sourcing while you source the suppliers, correct? Evaluate your supplier base basis, how how they are using, how they are more green towards the supplying you the products, correct? I think that is also important, correct? And I think I just wanted to build up upon a point what Ashish said. Thanks.
Right. I mean, one live example that right now I'm working, this startup is such a nice use case they are implementing in their network optimization sort of algorithm. they're also considering the less jerk on the road. So there is a KPI, less jerk on the road. And it's basically, this startup works with both, right? So it's the two-wheelers and as well as the four-wheelers, three-wheelers for a step delivery kind of a thing startup, right? And they are considering this less jerk on the road. And of course, we use Google Analytics for that, right? So this geo-analytics software is actually trying to predict what's the best route for the driver to move from one point to another. So, and while the climate and emission part is the most proning part of it, there is also the S part, ESG, the social, the ethics part of it also, right? So I just wanted to share this example, right? This is a live example that I'm working. The startup is working on, like, how this driver will feel less jerk on the road if he takes a certain route without impacting the delivery committed timelines, the service level agreements basically. So that's one of the examples, like how the digital and analytics can be used in anywhere these days. That's the baseline these days, right? I mean, you have to do anything that you want to do, it has to start with the digital and technology as a starting point. And the more you go into this, there is no limit to your ESG compliance kind of a thing. It's like being human, right? How much you want to be, it's completely on your hand. You just have to make the right trade-offs. So just wanted to share this example.
Thank you, Ashish. Yeah.
Ashish brought up a good point on ethics. I was doing a course. There is an international institute, Terra, and I was trying to bring myself up, in my knowledge quotient and sustainability and all of those things. And one of the use case they gave to me was, given that I work in the logistics space, if I electrify all the trucks, right? What impact would it have on global carbon emission? How much would it save? Just the perspective. We have been talking about, electrification. Let's say it is powered by, renewable energy. What would the impact be? It is few decimal percentages, 0.2, 0.3% of the global carbon emission, right? Just that much. Would you want to still go ahead with that initiative or not, with that perspective in mind? Now comes the fact of ethics, that when these trucks go, they go through some of the routes where a lot of villages are set up or local communities are set up, so they create pollution. Now, equity, justice starts to come into picture. So you have to still, think very broader, in terms of analyzing whether a solution has to be taken forward or not. And ethics is one area where, even though the solution might not have the greatest of the impact, but if you think from social standpoint, equity standpoint, then you might want to consider still taking it forward.
Thank you. Life of logistician is never easy. We in our cohort have Ajay, Vidit, Ritesh, Saintani, Dibaspati, and many others who have been associated in some or other form with supply chain. Now, moving on to you, Anup. Data is the new oil, and refining / analyzing the data effectively is a new gold rush. How can innovations like generative AI, cloud computing, data democratization, etc., can be used to identify and mitigate environmental risk in the supply chain?
I think a great question. To be honest, we touched upon certain aspect of it, in various discussion. So, for example, data democratization is very important, and I talked about how sustainability data lake is being built up with the sole objective that, to keep on building new cases, new use cases, use cases that we are not even thinking about right now might come in future because of various restrictions, compliances that the government will put upon in future. So there will be new initiatives that is coming up, and data democratization will play a key, because we cannot wait for the data pipelines to be built in. You need to have the access to the data. That takes a time in itself. So if you start thinking ahead in terms of what would be that bottleneck that will, hinder my or increase my timelines to come up with such use cases, these solutions. That's where the data democratization plays a very, very bigger role. And when I say data democratization, you have to think very holistically over here. You have to think about external data, internal data. You have to think about your data coming, from your partners. Now, this is not an easy job, right? Because you're not just thinking from the data perspective. What you also have to now think is, with DPDP coming into picture on the data security and all, it's very important we take those into considerations, which now that you have this immense amount of data, you have to put governance on top of that data. Now I talked about partnership is very critical for speed of delivery of any initiatives. Now, you will be sharing your data with your partners. They will be building intelligence on top of it. Those intelligence cannot be cross-shared, right? So for example, I was working with a startup and they had sold a solution to Maruti. I'm just giving you, but I'll not name that startup over here. What they were telling me, they can enable backhaul. Backhaul is, let's say, you send your material from your plant to your customer, but now when it has to come back, it will come back empty, right? So it is not being utilized. So now for that particular trip back, you're basically paying the extra money and you're doing more carbon emission, right? That can be utilized for picking up other loads. Now, this particular startup was through the GPS tracking and Google Analytics, which Ashish talked about. He could pick up insights as to what Hyundai's what the truck is doing while returning back into one of the competitors' plant, how much time they are staying at. Now, all of these things can give me an insight as to what that competitor is planning. Are they planning some sort of a launch, or maybe some some discounting offers they're trying to, something. I mean, you can really gain insights. Now, do you really want that to be cross-shared? So as you share more and more data outside, be very, very sure that these partners are using this data. They're trying to make a product out of it, and they're trying to some of your competitors. Now, with this data democratization, these things are becoming very, very critical. While it is increasing the speed of delivery of a lot of use cases that we are working upon and that might come in future, we also have to be very, very cautious in terms of building up the right governance, making sure we have a right contract, not just sustainability rated contracts. Now, so for example, in logistics, we are also thinking about, usually all the contracts are based on OTIF performance, on time in full. But now we are also thinking on the lines that should we have carbon emission targets related baked into the contract itself. So it's now gone into, it's something like a carbon price tax. You can, you can say something like that. So yeah, so data democratization, while it is useful, will speed up everything, but you have to be very, very cautious in terms of how much do you want to democratize it, keeping in mind both the speed and the risk associated with it. Now, all of these data basically sits on, you have now all runs on cloud. You do a lot of cloud computing. Now, this is where it's a real game changer. The way you architect your solutions play a very, very critical role as to how fast you can replicate those solutions across businesses. The more now you have this top cloud service providers, AWS, Azure, Oracle. Now they can innovate in these areas much faster than what you can develop, right? Now here's a choice: whether do you want to go with your own development, or do you want to use the cloud computing power that these cloud service providers are coming up? It's very, very important, because as you scale up, you have one solution that is running across 60 plants. So you have customized a lot on that particular solution, right? You have enabled microservices architecture. You have containerized those. You have created a medallion data architecture. When I say medallion data architecture, it's a 3 or 4 layer architecture where you have your raw data coming in. Let's say this just comes into your landing data zone. Then you transform or clean that data, right? It goes into your bronze zone. Then you parameterize this, it goes into your silver zone. And then you run your data science, and this goes into your goal zone. This is very critical. The construct is very critical, and I'm just sharing because it's useful when you guys think about how do you manage this data. Because each of these layers can further be used in any of the future use cases that you have not thought about. So it's very, very critical. But what I'm trying to focus here is, as you use various Databricks or Snowflake to build this kind of an architecture, this has to be replicable across various other businesses, right? If I have built a network optimization for Ultratech with a lot of customization done for 60 to run 60 plans on top of it, I need to make sure that if a new business pains come up, then this can be quickly replicated. I don't have to do a grounds up, build up grounds up. Also taking into consideration that I don't want to keep managing this solution by myself, right? I want a lot of these to be managed by these cloud service providers, not writing my own Python scripts for pulling up the data. There are all managed services now available by these cloud service providers. Now, while I'm talking a lot more on technology, the real aspect that I'm trying to highlight is, if you want to scale up any sustainability related solution faster and want the impact to be accelerated, you need to have the underlying data democratizations, cloud computing services enabled to make sure these solutions are deployed faster and the returns are accelerated. So that's the key point over here. Touching upon the use cases, I recently had given in 5-6 months back a small talk in industry forum, ARC. And while I was preparing for it, I really found the 7R principle very, very useful in terms of how do you want to align your analytical solutions. You can Google it. There are 7 R's, basically: redesign, recycle, reuse, and various aspects. Now, redesigning your product is very, very important, let's say. And in ABFRL, our fashion division, we are using Gen AI use cases now to come up with new product design. Even we are also now trying to mix various fabrics, various looks, without being able to really create a prototype product. So, the Gen AI capabilities are accelerating those, also reducing waste. In fact, just one point, ABFRL now is water positive. It is runs on, I think, 70% renewable energy and almost zero landfill. 80 to 90% landfill. So it's one of the most sustainable business that we have. A lot of our analytics initiatives have enabled to that. They have the most mature data lake architecture within the entire organization. We run some of the best Gen AI use cases in terms of fabric design, or coming up with new fabrics that could go into the development of product. So those kind of use cases that we have been working upon. Now it's not so rosy as well, I would say, in terms of implementing analytics solution or a Gen AI solution. And that's where I was focusing a lot more on partnerships. And now we'd all talked about how route optimization, analytics based or AI based route optimization can reduce lead distance, right? Now it can reduce lead distance. It can reduce your emissions and all as well. It looks good on paper, actually. When you actually want your plants to adopt, it is not that easy. These contracts, are basically, when you're doing route optimization, you're also telling the business, renegotiate your contract with your transporters, right? You should not be paying this much. They should follow this route. They should pay this much and all those things. So there is a contract negotiation that will happen with them based on the analytical solution that you have designed. You go and take that to the plant logistics head would tell you, this MLA is running this transport business. What do you tell them? What do you tell them? You will not take, he tells me very straightforward. He calls me after 6 p.m. in the night. I can't go and meet him. You can guess the reasons. So how do you then, you still have to work, right? You still have to make sure your solutions are implemented. And that's where partnerships come into picture. And just to give you a bit of, again, a context, this transporter network system is very, very deep. It runs through a 3-4 level of broker systems. Now, it's not just about you got the data, you bring out insight and you deliver the solution. You have to find a way to bring these partners into your platforms, digital platforms, so that these and create a marketplace there where these things can be enabled. So now you have to partner with some startups who have good on-ground connect. You bring that startup in, through them, you bring those partners in, and then you create a marketplace, which is again a data science-based solutions. But then you are thinking in a very different approach. Earlier it was I will say, grounds up approach. Now you are having a different kind of an approach to solving the same problem. So yeah, we have a lot of use cases. I mean, I can go on and on, but don't really want to, but there are a lot of opportunities in using AI, Gen AI. It is still an evolving space, specifically in the Gen AI as to how much it can contribute. We are looking at multiple aspects, even the thought process. So for example, the government comes up its railway budget, right? And we have the entire network distribution of, let's say, Ultratech. How can we bring Gen AI capabilities to understand this budgets, government spendings, map it onto a business landscape, logistics landscape, and then suggest new use cases to businesses. So we're working on those kind of initiatives as well, very high impact initiatives, very transformative initiatives, but it's again still in a very, very nascent phase. So yeah, I think.
Yeah, before we throw the house open for questions from our batch, last question I'll be asking is from Chetan. Digital platform and especially social media announcement board for the global citizen. How can field of logistics and supply chain utilize these platforms to communicate their commitment towards goal of sustenance to the target population?
Yeah, and I think social media has become the very much part of day-to-day life. While I still get, get those glares from my better half while keep checking my mobile every now and then. It's becoming a habit, right? Social media can now change the entire political landscape of a country, right? We have multiple examples during past 6-7 years, right? But the same thing can be also harnessed towards betterment, correct? Since this generation, or forget this generation, now has been a very rising awareness about sustainability, protecting the planet, bring on more greener initiatives. And one of the point Ashish made about the younger generation is more sensitive towards using the product which are environmental friendly, right? So how the social media becomes now very important pivotal role in a couple of ways, right? One is an organization can use social media platform to champion the cause of sustainability. It can talk about how they are integrating sustainability, recycling, reusing into their products to build trust with their consumers, correct? Across multiple social media platforms. They can also talk about real-time updates about how their suppliers or how their third parties or the ecosystem is also sustainable using the green technology, correct? To talk about it. The most important point on social media, knowing the use of it, right? I think about educating the larger population about this, correct? While the organization can focus on sustainable product, but how you educate a larger population to, enhance, adhere that or use that into your day-to-day life, correct? By mean of use, short, very pointed videos to educate about what all can be done in day-to-day life, correct? The simple thing could be segregating the waste, correct? The wet waste can be reused in the form of a fertilizer, where the dry waste you can give up to, then figure it out at the government level to how they can discard it, correct? We can do those campaigns about how a particular habit can impact the broader environment, which we only think about ourselves, right? What a simple small waste, plastic waste can harm my my flat or my house, right? But it also has a larger, if each house creates that plastic waste, it can impact this globe also, correct? So education is becoming very important, how an organization can educate the one. The third thing is about collaboration. Organization can use crowdsourcing the ideas, asking their followers to come up with the idea that how some sustainability can be built or what are the different ideas, right? I did speak about Adidas campaign, right? Run for Ocean. It's nothing but creating that awareness among the larger population about ocean, the plastic which is affecting our oceans, and how we can be little responsible about discarding a plastic bottle and something. Here is a live example of not using plastic bottle. Maybe 6-7 years back, we would have got plastic bottles here, right? But I have seen across all organic, I work right now, I work for GP worldwide, but I just started 3 weeks old, but I work for Accenture extensively, right? For last few years, we have been using glass bottles even while the clients visit and all that, and no more the plastic bottles, right? So I think that awareness or that collaboration is becoming very, very important. Last but not the least, right? Using social influencers to drive that message, correct? Social influencers are becoming a rage in the recent time. Social influencers can earn lakhs of rupees, okay, just by influencing the large. So how organization is tying up with those social influencers to spread the awareness across its own products, how they are sustainable, how they are environmental friendly, bringing in more clientele to them, but also silently put in mind of the larger stuff, saying that how they can also contribute to global environmental challenges, right? It's not about only organizations are doing, but it is our user also has to follow that practice. Like after usage, right? How you can discard, right? One of the thing I follow, right, about the digital disposal, right? We have a habit of throwing old handsets, either get it exchanged or throw it, but the exchange policy is one of the area where the organization take the handsets back and see how they can discard it, very, very responsibility. Or I sometimes give it to the Chroma, right, where they take the digital waste and they manage themselves, right, rather than just throwing in a dustbin or something, right? So that awareness comes from the social media that if you use, I know social media can be used either way, but if it is responsibly used across, correct, it can absolutely influence this population and all that to follow through what we talk about the environmental friendly stuff. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chetan. Now we are in the last leg, so we do have time for, I think, maybe one more question. May I, if anyone is having any question, can introduce and ask.
First of all, I would like to thank you for sharing your time with us. My name is Vidit. I have 6 years of experience in supply chain management and procurement. So my question is open for all. How your organization, clients, and partners are using Industry 4.0 technology like IoT devices, and recently we introduced Procurement 4.0 for overcoming any sudden or any unpredictable disruption in the supply chain, which you have not predicted, and also remaining sustainable and profitable. Can you share with an example? Thank you.
So I think one of the example, I'll just start and then probably my fellow panelists can add. The use of IoT, I spoke about one client of us where we deployed a end-to-end visibility using digital platform where the signals comes from the live shipments to find out where that shipment is, to basically track whether it is on time or no, correct? It also talks about, it also helped us during the port congestion, correct? Because since we have enabled the digital tracking of the ships also, right? In a recent time when US, Canada ports faced a lot of congestion, right? The technology was used to see how we can divert ships midway to a different port rather than getting into the final port and then wait there for months together, correct? Very effectively used because standing a ship and keep using the, keep emitting the carbon emission is no way. That as well incur some extra cost and get that material unloaded fast so that it can move. It can be used also, right? It can make the product availability also do that, correct? This is and we came across this classic example where we had, the client had not anticipated that but how quickly a digital technology can help to take the decision making, also give whether what is the cost versus cost benefit analysis, right? Whether I can divert the ship or I can continue to do that, right? But I think that the wisest decision was track to the next available port and then probably use land transport to get it done rather than just keep waiting, because that ship can turn around faster. Because if the ship is stuck, means you use another 3 ships to send material while that ship is still waiting. How can I turn around that ship back very fast? Correct. Similarly, I think Maersk has deployed a IoT on all their containers or most of their containers, and they have a command center which tracks their global container movement to ensure that how they can reutilize the container faster. Correct. Track them, help empty containers to get it back quickly so that they can use, rather than keep building more and more containers to just add to the transfer, right? I think that's a real life example how digital IoT can really help you there. Yeah. Also, one of the thing, and this probably did not get implemented, but we were building the IoT based platform for automobiles. Now that almost all cars has electronic signals, correct? The signals can be harnessed to see how the other health of the motor, correct, automobile, and probably guide saying that, okay, something is not right. Probably you have to take it to the service center. It will also give you option about which is your closest service center, what will be the approximate cost to make a decision faster rather than waiting for automobile to fail. And then you have your truck coming and all that. We had built a platform for that. Not sure whether we implemented that end, but that could be another good reason of being proactive about tracking the health of a particular product and see how we can quickly take those decisions faster, right? Rather than waiting for it.
We still have 5 more minutes. If any panelists would like to.
I can give another example, Vijit, for your question, right? This is an automotive company that I was working for, right? So as a client, I was part of this engagement with an automotive company, and we found in the automotive parts, they have different service cycles, and one of the service cycle was this induction motor used in air conditioners of the car, right? And we found there is a particular pattern that after every summer there is sudden increase in the serviceability of the air conditioner of the induction motor of the car, right? And luckily we first implemented a little bit of a sensor technology. With that, we got to know that the sensor technology was with the client, so we saw the seasonality and cyclicity of this particular problem. But then we took further one step ahead, and this is very interesting. We contacted the manufacturer of this induction motor, AC induction motor, and we actually said to do certain changes. And after the implementation of the pilot phase, we saw a decline of 80% in the serviceability, or basically the reliability increased by 80% after the summer season of this induction motor. So what I'm trying to say here is the IoT, the Industry 4.0, right? What is Industry 4.0? It's a maturity stage. So, and not all the organizations will be at the same level of maturity, for sure. This Industry 4.0, industrial IoT devices, connected devices, these not only help you get your usual use cases done right, which is like service, repair, maintenance, and many other use cases. We took it back to the new product introduction kind of a phase. And we patented this technology through that client of ours. So that's the implication this IoT could actually implement in your overall supply chain, that you can take it back to all the way to the new product introduction and your research and development, right? And companies saw the huge profit because now the less parts being replaced, and they were actually selling it to the other competitors as well, right? Because it's the induction motor supplier, so they are also selling it to, let's say, Maruti, Toyota, Tata, and whatnot, right? So, and they were very happy with this implementation, right? Because they were getting the complaints from all their customers, like what happens that it's the over usage in the summer season or what, right? but the reliability increased. So that's the real life examples I would like to share, that you can always go back to the new product introduction, research and development with the use of your IoT technologies in as well. So that's right there.
Thank you, Ashish. So I'll bring into this discussion. Logisticians have to deliver at time. So I was given 11 o'clock. So 11 o'clock it is. By quoting Alexander the Great, who knew the importance of logistics 2,300 years ago, he said, "My logisticians are humorless lot. They know if my campaign fails, they are the first ones I will slay. So I don't want to get slayed." And this is my quote: "Time and tide should never wait for tea break." With this, I hand over to Bhavna for balance of the process.
Abhishek, just one thing. I was going with the Ultratech Chief Logistics Officer Rajiv Mehta, and you probably would have, to a Business World Summit in Delhi. And I was trying to pick his brain as to what he thinks. He told me one line: logistics or supply chain is like an Indian bride. When we go to all the forums, you know, you have to know English, you have to be well presentable and all. But you know, when you are inside the house, it's mostly like you have to do all the dirty work. You're not being allocated budgets for. So, you know, just wanted to throw in the context that probably this perspective also has to change in here, you know, for the logistics to truly evolve within an organization.
Okay, before he hands over back, okay, thank you so much, all of you, for patiently being here listening to us. I wish you all very best in your future, wherever you go. Be very open, transparent, ethical, challenge the status quo. You know, don't hesitate asking question, even if that means basic question. That's okay, correct? Today, even today, after 30 years, I still ask basic questions to understand a particular system or the process, to question it, correct? Don't hesitate. Go beyond the comfort level and go by intuition, okay? Don't have to hesitate or curb you. Okay, thank you so much and wishing you all of very best. Okay, thanks.
Now I hand over to Mehak and Bhavna.
Thank you to our esteemed speakers for shedding light on some crucial aspects such as resilience, digitalization, data utilization, and the importance of forging strategic partnerships in driving sustainable supply chains forward. Your contributions have been invaluable in shaping our understanding and paving the way for a greener, more resilient future.
And for that wholesome participation, we would now like to felicitate you with a small token of our gratitude. I'd request Shonu sir to present our guests with the mementos as we call upon them. Mr. Chetan Sabnis, India Head, GEP Worldwide.
That's okay.
Okay. Mr. Samarnath Jha, MD and CEO, ASEC Supply Chain. Mr. Ashish Pathak, Global Product Director, Supply Chain Practice, Boston Consulting Group. Mr. Anup Kumar Dubey, Analytics Practice Leader, Aditya Birla Group.
We would now request Shonu sir to felicitate Mrs. Shrishti Pathak, who is a user experience designer working at Talentica Software. We are honored to have you with us today, ma'am. A louder round of applause, guys. Now, before we break for tea and refreshments, I would request the batch to assemble first at the ground floor lobby and then move to LC2 entrance for some group pictures. Post that, please proceed for tea and some snacks, and let's reconvene at 11:25 for the next half of the event. Thank you. Requesting everyone to take their seats, please. Welcome back, everyone. We hope you enjoyed the refreshing break. Now, as we reconvene, we delve into our second panel discussion on supply chain intelligence, redefining sustainability through advanced analytics. This topic embodies a profound shift in supply chain management where advanced analytics intersect with sustainability goals to drive transformative outcomes. Through predictive analytics for demand forecasting and real-time monitoring solutions, we aim to reduce waste, enhance resource efficiency, and foster environmental stewardship. Join us as we explore how intelligent analytics are reshaping supply chain towards a sustainable future.
Now, without further ado, let us introduce you to the best of the industry, starting with Mr. Rajiv Tukral, a distinguished board member and MIT Sloan alumni. Mr. Tukral brings over 3 decades of expertise in strategy, corporate governance, and organizational scaling. With a profound understanding of logistics and a keen interest in skilling, Rajiv has emerged as a prominent voice in the industry, actively contributing to logistics and CFO forums. His extensive corporate journey, including pivotal roles at Cargoman Logistics, Tax Gemini, and more, showcases his versatility and proficiency in navigating diverse sectors such as fintech, consulting, and manufacturing. Rajiv brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table, making him a valuable asset to any discussion on financial audits and business growth strategies. Please welcome him with a huge round of applause to the stage. So please join us in this stage.
With great pleasure, let me introduce Mr. Rahul Sharma. A seasoned finance and supply chain professional, Rahul Sharma brings over 17 years of extensive experience in multinational companies within the healthcare and FMCG sectors. Currently serving as the CFO and VP Supply Chain at Fresenius Kabi Oncology India, Rahul showcases his proficiency in navigating complex financial and operational landscapes across diverse markets, including India, Europe, UK, and the Middle East. His remarkable achievements have been recognized by prestigious bodies, including the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, with CA Business Leaders 40 under 40. Additionally, he was also recognized as one of the top leaders in CFOs within the healthcare industry in India by Industry Outlook magazine. Thank you, sir, for being with us today.
Next up, we have Mr. Amit Raman Jha. He holds a pivotal role of Chief Supply Chain Officer at Crest Digital Private Limited with over 22 years of extensive experience. He's a seasoned leader in the realm of supply chain and business operations. His expertise spans across diverse domains such as global sourcing and procurement, strategic partnership, contract management, profit and loss management, and process automation. With a decade-long tenure at Bharti Airtel Limited, coupled with previous roles at Ericsson and Telesonic Networks Limited, Amit brings a wealth of experience in leadership positions across diverse geographies. He is an alumnus of the prestigious institution of the Armed Forces, the CMM, Jabalpur, and IIM Calcutta, further solidifying his credentials as a distinguished industry professional. We are honored to have you with us, sir.
Up next, we have Mr. Rudra Shankar Roy. Mr. Rudra brings over 26 years of extensive experience with a diverse background spanning IBM consulting and core manufacturing industries. Currently serving as General Manager, Global SME, and thought leader with asset and manufacturing optimization in IBM Consulting, he leads the supply chain, process transformation, and industrial products consulting practice worldwide. Recognized as a certified strategic supply chain engineer and IBM academic ambassador, Mr. Rudra is renowned for his contributions to strategy consulting, business process transformation, and operations management. His global leadership has driven over 300 high-profile engagements, resulting in significant annualized benefits exceeding $500 million for clients across various sectors. Additionally, he has received numerous accolades, including the Eminence and Excellence Award from IBM and the Outstanding Contribution to the Development of Education in India Award from IIHM. With a rich educational background in engineering and management from institutions like IIEST and Harvard, Mr. Rudra continues to impart his knowledge as an honorary adjunct faculty and guest speaker at esteemed institutions worldwide. Welcome to XLRI, sir. We are honored to have you.
Moving on to Mr. Srinivas Kumar. Mr. Kumar possesses over 2 decades of experience driving technology solutions in supply chain management and spend management across various industries. With a background in marketing management and MCA degree, he has held pivotal roles at renowned companies like Oracle, Infor Incorporated, and SAP, where he spearheaded implementation of enterprise applications for global clients. As the director and CEO of Template Technologies, Kumar leads strategic initiatives fostering innovation and establishing the organization as a trusted partner for cutting-edge technology solutions in supply chain management. Thank you for joining us today, sir. Now, passing the baton to Priyanka Kumari, our colleague and moderator for this discussion. Over to you, Priyanka.
Good morning, everyone. Esteemed panelists, distinguished faculty, and my dear colleagues, I welcome you all to today's conclave, Clockspeed 4.0, on the theme Reimagining Supply Chain 2.0, Fusion of Technology and Sustainability. And the topic for our panel discussion is Supply Chain Intelligence, Redefining Sustainability through Advanced Analytics. The triple bottom line model by John Elkington emphasizes on the 3 Ps: people, planet, and profit, and advocates for the simultaneous pursuit of economic, social, and environmental objectives. To achieve sustainability goals, we have moved from linear economy to a circular economy approach. We have also moved from shareholder theory to stakeholder theory, and now in the shared value creation, which emphasizes going beyond compliance, strategic innovation, and integration. All of these sustainability initiatives help create a competitive advantage for companies and give them a social license to operate. The supply chain has a huge contribution in this initiative since it covers vast area of a company's operation. With the help of advanced analytics, we are able to reduce waste by accurate demand forecasting. We are also able to reduce our carbon footprint by optimizing the routes for transport. And there are many more things to improve in the life cycle of products and by carrying out the environmental impact assessment. I want to open this panel discussion with a question to all the panelists. Given the increasing emphasis on environmental responsibility, how are you integrating real-time analytics and sustainability metrics in your supply chain operations to enhance shareholder value?
Good morning, all. Thanks for inviting me for this discussion. I'm especially thankful to XLRI and all the people here. And if we talk about sustainability, everybody thinks about sustainability as something this is somebody else has to do. Whatever fruits we are enjoying today is because of some trees somebody would have planted someday. And sustainability is something which is moving beyond your in terms of how to put it, like the previous panel also talked about. This is something last 10 years, every corporate leader you will find talking about it. You will also find that in terms of all the boardroom discussion, this discussion is catching up, and there are ESG norms which are coming up. All the organizations are catching up on this. Top 1000 organization, it is something more like mandated. You have to this BSR reporting and other things which are mandatory for them. But looking at supply chain in terms of the analytics which are there, I think these analytics are the backbone in terms of those reportings can be met. And all of us sitting in this room have the collective responsibility to have a sustainable future for the generations to come. We have to leave that legacy in terms of what we can leave for our future generation. And this is something every organization should make as a priority, and as quickly as they want to put it, because you can continue waiting, like even the way the GST was implemented in India, it continued to increase. Now today they're talking about 1000 companies. It will continue to increase impact on ESG, environment, sustainability, and governance. So you'll have to really think through in terms of how to implement those things, how your backend analytics start giving you that data, and how you make those robust and real for your organization.
Yeah, I think Rajiv very well summarized that. So in order to start, I think first of all, thank you for inviting us here. And it is so encouraging to see all of you focusing on such a subject, which is not even there in the boardroom of many companies till now. So I think you guys are the future of the country, of the industry. And if you guys are focusing this as your main subject, so I think it's very encouraging for the industry and for the future of the country and the world. I see this topic from two perspectives. One is obviously the ESG compliances. Obviously, Europe has CSRD, India SEBI is moving very fast. 1000 companies. There are many companies who have opted it voluntary to report ESG compliances. But I think the second aspect is obviously our responsibility environmentally and socially. That's very important. And India is catching up very fast. And I think our Honorable Prime Minister has committed carbon neutrality by 2070, whereas Europe has a target of 2050. And our company, Fresenius, which is a German company, we have a target of carbon neutrality by 2040. So I think India committing 2070 is being very honest, be very practical, because the world has advanced to this direction, but India is catching up very fast. Moving on to the topic of pharma, like I represent the pharma industry and healthcare industry. So pharma supply chain is pretty complex, because whatever we do impacts the patients and the hospitals and the various lives we impact every day. And because of the temperature requirements, the regulatory requirements, and I think that's why I think sustainability is not an option. It's a necessity for pharma industry, at least. And that's why being a global company, we had an advantage of moving into ESG direction very fast. And obviously pharma being a regulated industry, so we had that advantage of moving into that direction very fast, probably better than other industry sectors. I think Samar in the last panel session prescribed a very valid point that it has to govern from the board, from the top, because Rajiv, I think, mentioned a lot of CEOs, they are discussing about sustainability. But as of now, what I feel is in most of the companies, it is at the strategy stage. It has not to a stage of implementation. And I think that's the key. We need to move very fast. And obviously, data is the key. Rajiv very well mentioned. And I think that the topic and the question is very relevant, because without data, you cannot move into that direction. So what we did, because I said we are a global company, we had examples from other countries. And obviously we are from pharma industry, so we had a lot of that advantage. What we did was we used the data analytics to identify and map the entire life cycle of the product and the entire value chain, starting from the raw material procurement to reaching to the last milestone, which is delivering the medicines or the vials or the vaccines to the patients, I think. And that was the primary move which we took. So we started from the raw materials, what ingredients we use, and what are the raw materials or the ingredients which are impacting the environment more than others, versus the industry, versus the benchmark, versus our own internal indicators which are there. So we identified a lot of chemicals which were there, we were using, were highly impacting the environment negatively. So there was a drive, and that's why I said it's a discussion at the boardrooms, but it has not reached to the implementation. So I think in the last discussion, Ashish mentioned defining the KPIs, but just defining the KPIs is not going to solve this problem, because KPIs will be just 10% of the target bonus of the employees. But I think what we are addressing is the larger cause. So then we implemented the green chemistry, because we cannot sustain with a lot of chemicals, because ultimately bringing those chemicals and using those chemicals and patients are consuming those chemicals end of the day, obviously impacting the life and the environment as well. So we started green chemistry. Second most important ingredient, which is plastic and all the packing materials. What are the best ways to implement the environmental friendly plastic, the packaging material? So what we did was, we are one of the fast mover. We are one of the first company in Europe to implement FSC compliant packaging. Second was what we realized, because most of the medicines or the vaccines are temperature controlled product, and it requires a lot of cold storage, right? And cold storage is one of the highly energy consuming supply chain mode, which consumes a lot of, which has a lot of impact on the environment. So what we did was bringing the circular economy. So we innovated, or the industry innovated, the temperature control boxes, which goes to the last mile and which comes back to us. So this way we are like reusing the same temperature control boxes time and again, which are validated again and again. Third was, obviously we are high energy consuming industry, because we manufacture API, which is the ingredient of any medicine. And API, especially we are dealing into cancer medicines. So we manufacture the API of the cancer oncology medicines, which is more than 12-month cycle. So while an injection of oncology takes about 12 months, starting from the raw material to it reaches the stage of the final vial. So we realized, and that's why it's a highly energy consuming industry, which we realized. And we realized, obviously, we are not using the best efficient ways of utilities. First, we use biogas, because we have a lot of ingredient coming from the plant, which used to be a waste. So then to reduce the waste, and obviously to utilize that in the energy consumption, we implemented the biogas plant within all the facilities, and which really added a lot of value. Second, in terms of the energy, what we did was, because see, I'm a finance guy as well. So people talk about implementing the solar energy, but that's a highly capital intensive project, and every company cannot afford to invest when every company is facing the challenge of profitability and the investments. So now there are a lot of partners so we realized a lot of partners and new age companies, they are ready to invest solar panels in your factories. So what we did was, tying up with those partners, we implemented all the solar panels on all our manufacturing facilities. We did not incur a single rupee on implementing the solar panels. We just had a commitment of 10 to 15 years of buying that electricity from them. And obviously that electricity is much more cheaper than what you buy from the state grids. And obviously you impact positively to the environment to reduce the carbon emission. Fourth, I think, which is our subject of the day, is the logistic, obviously, because we manufacture cancer medicines here and we export to more than 60 countries. So we realized most of our shipments were going through air, because as I said, we have a cycle of 12 months. So you manufacture for 12 months, and then the market is very complex. So if you have to supply to more than 60 countries, the demand forecasting. So first we did was, we improved and optimized our data analytics to ensure we have a optimized demand forecasting platform and inventory levels. Because, and I think fundamental what we achieved through this was, we reduced our inventory levels by 20%. And which removed the problem of overstocking, because it's a expiry product, and whatever expires obviously negatively impact the environment. And then obviously then there was a debate that why we are sending everything to air, because exporting to more than 60 countries through air, obviously it's the easiest way, because you can say it's a 12-month cycle, then it has to reach to the patient as soon as possible, because drugs are always in shortages. But obviously that has a negative impact on the environment, because you cannot sustain with the air shipment mode of travel. So then we started the drive of sea shipment. Then we measured that KPI that we should at least send 90% of our shipments through sea rather than air. And obviously then there were a lot of challenges, because air takes about 24 to 48 hours, right, from India to Europe. But sea shipment takes about 45 to 60 days. And you have a lot more challenges like Red Sea, Russia, Ukraine war, those challenges keep on coming. But I think the commitment which was there from the boardrooms, that we have to implement this. And today we have reached to a level of 98% we send through sea. And that's a huge change. So this is the way we analyzed our entire life cycle and the entire value chain of our processes. And where are the opportunities? And that was driving not from India management, but from the global management as well. And that's why I think we were able to implement that. And the one important point I think we all miss is because 70% of our spend, we don't control. It comes through our suppliers or our partners. So I think we have to come to a stage when we have to compare the cost versus the sustainability. Because still a lot of companies, Indian companies or the multinational companies, they are still focusing on the cost. And procurement, there is a very famous concept of L1. I think that has to go away. Because if you don't want to go to L1, that you have to justify, and that will attract a lot more audit questions, tenders, etc., 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 etc. I think that mindset has to change, and that what we have done. So we have mapped all our quality systems to give T1, which is technically one, for the suppliers who are following these sustainability practices more than others. And there are many instances we have given preferences to T1 over the L1, and I think that's the change of the mindset we have to bring. So these are the things I think we have done. So over to
First of all, thanks to the esteemed faculties of XLRI and our scholars for inviting us for this forum on sustainability. And this has now become the buzzword and the global priority in terms of the supply chain practices across the globe. While we talk about technology, data, and sustainability, I think we should be very clear about one thing, that today data is an intangible asset. It's a gold mine, right? It depends how do you reap that data in your benefit. Technology is interrelated with data. So if you adopt a technology or deploy a technology, you have to take certain decisions. It's a strategic priority that has to be set by the organization in terms of the need for the technology. What kind of technology do you want to adopt? And how do you want to measure that technology in terms of pre and post impact? So you adopted a technology, then you want to assess and analyze its impact. You have to be data driven. And even if for adopting the technology, you have to be data driven in terms of what benefits I'm going to reap out after deploying this technology. Having said that, in the real world, a lot of changes are happening. If we talk about the electronics and communications, then new chipsets are emerging, which are less data consuming, but higher in their computing capacities. So again, decision has to be taken at the top level itself, whether to keep on evolving with that technology, which can give us the benefit in terms of realizing the benefits of lesser consumption of energy. At the same time, keep on harnessing the data in your own benefits to see whether removing the machineries which operate on coal-based, like for the power plants, for the manufacturing industry, the boilers, the furnaces which run on coal, can it shift to certain different modes of renewables, which can further lead to lesser energy consumption and lesser CO2 emission. So all these terms are basically interrelated in terms of sustainability, because anything that you practice well, which gives you higher productivity, better efficiency, it will eventually lead to the organization's sustainability. Now, in our world, what we did was we set up 5 strategic pillars in supply chain in terms of the long-term sustainability. We started with people. So we started spending on the people side, upskilling our people to make them aware of the needs of the environmental, social, and corporate governance. Also, to bring in awareness of their roles and contribution in the organization in terms of the health, safety, and environments. Second, on the process. So we revisited our entire process, which leads to the waste. In fact, whatever waste was generated out of the entire production of, we are into the digital technology infrastructure. And there are a lot of products, which returns from the site at the same time, there are various products which gets obsolete over a period of time. So can we reutilize those products, reuse it, right? So there are different types of pole sites which we deploy, and different types of products. So can we have a alternate of those products or not? So we worked upon those processes. Then on technology, so we decide on a 5-year plan in terms of the technology roadmap. We decide which technology to adopt and in what time frame. So whether it be the route planning, whether it is the partner management system, which eventually impacts your overall morale of your partner if you make their payment on time, make their invoices traceable and visible. Then we also worked upon the inventory management softwares, like different organizations may have different kind of applications that they use to work upon the material requirement planning. In our case, it was primarily dependent on imports from China. And it had a lot of impact on sustainability, because if the Russia-Ukraine war or US-China tension becomes a hurdle in our imports, then it will impact my rollouts and deployment. So what to do in that scenario? So it was highly disruptive for us. So we started taking decision on the partner ecosystem built up on, and more focus on the Make in India products. That helped us a lot. Then on the technology side, we kept on implementing the technology which suits us on a current term basis, current need basis, as well as our future requirements. And accordingly, we built those softwares which, like landlord management systems, then the partner management systems, then iTrack, which tracks the material, and CATS, capital asset tracking systems. And there are other applications also which we used, in our material planning. So usually it depends on the organization's risk appetite to have the material planning requirement for M+1, M+2, M+3. We started adopting M+3 to ensure sustainability in terms of the material availability and no stockouts. So those are data analytics we worked upon. And then excellence part. One thing very important that in a specific to the site rollout scenario, you'll have to see how much effective is your transportation model. How many times you are delivering products at a site, and can you club those shipments, 2, 3, 4 location and destination shipments into one full truckload or part truckload? Are your contracts built like that so that you could reap the benefits of your contracting? So we worked upon those pillars, and that worked to our benefit. And I think as a strategy, if you look into the sustainability, in fact, the more and more we are techno-savvy, data-driven, it will eventually lead to sustainability itself.
Yeah, first of all, good afternoon to everyone. And it was a great topic that we have been a part of the panel today, right? So reimagining supply chain. We used to imagine supply chain at one point of time. If I go back, I started my career from this city in Tata Steel. So I do remember those days when there's a tagline that there is a little bit of steel in everyone's life, right? That was SAIL, right? And what I see today, there's a little bit of digital supply chain in everyone's life. So that's how we were evolving. And those days we used to manage in the log sheet, we used to write the operational data, the functional KPIs in a log sheet, which now transform into the digital path, right? And what I see today, everybody talks about, in my previous panel talks about a lot of digitization of supply chain. I put it in a different lens of supply chain, right? I go by what is the process requirements are, first of all, right? If we don't know what the process stands today and what is process is expecting out of me, I cannot digitize. Digitization is an enabler for me. If I look into the supply chain that way, we have seen supply chain as a service, right? What we call as a SaaS, supply chain as a service. What I'm talking about, Dash. So digital supply chain as a service. Okay. So when I say digital supply chain as a service, there are a few components that what we need to be intelligent enough to understand the workflow of the supply chain in an intelligent manner. So when we talk about the intelligent supply chain workflow, that's where we have to understand. We have a lot of technology enablers which is easily available in the market. But how I'm going to adapt those enablers? Whether there is a need for me to adopt those enablers or not, how I'm going to assess that? So first of all, I'll go back a little bit in terms of the consequences that we all jump into the digitization. But the state of the art of supply chain deployment remains when we understand the maturity of the business processes. If we are enabled to have a maturity assessment of my supply chain processes, then I can find out what are the digital enablers. Now, selection of a digital platform or any kind of ERP solution, I would recommend that it should be based on the ease of implementations, right? Because as the previous panel also talked about the volatility of the demand, the consequence of the geopolitical disruptions and other things. So if we don't address the ease of implementation, my priorities get changed. Today, if we look back during the COVID period, we used to wear the mask. That was a priority. I'm not saying anything related to the healthcare has earned a lot of money out of it, right? And those who are struggling on those industries, they are not, had a lot of money, right? Now, no one is using mask. So my priority has changed. The moment the priority is changing, I have to evolve with the technology that is related and embedded in the process. I look in those kind of lenses because if the ease of implementation is high for me and I get a better business benefit, I will go for that quadrant rather than struggling with getting a GenAI solution, investing on that. So selection of the project, of the digital project is very key things in the world today. Because I've seen a lot of startups, a lot of organization, because I'm coming with my experience. I'm saying that whatever I have done it in past for 300 plus engagement and more than 100 clients all over the world. And if you see the cultural dimensions, whatever we have seen, it can be adaptable in India, might not be adaptable in the countries like Caribbean. We have to understand the cultural dynamics because the change component of supply chain plays a pivotal role on those aspects. Today, I was referring to him just during some time back. We were doing an e-ties project and I was leading that from IBM side for Bharti Airtel, right? So that was way back in 2006. That was where we are digitizing everything on their supply chain. And now we have used those areas. We address those concerns, but now the concerns has changed. So today, what our client or a customer will look in terms of how effectively you are handling their demand fulfillment aspects. This is all about demand fulfillment with the cost factor. Minimum cost, fulfilling all my demands. So that's what is a key today in terms of when we look for any of these aspects. And again, I am re-emphasizing on the part of intelligent supply chain as a workflow, because that's where we come with the smartest way of working thing, right? So we talked about sustainability. We have learned the sustainability not today. We have learned sustainability since way back. And if I recollect, we used to have I studied in terms of sustainability for existence, right? And sustainability for supply chain are pretty common. Because what we have done in the conventional manner, and now today when we are going with any kind of digitization in terms of producing any kind of dashboard, which is also enabling the CXOs in terms of the faster decision making. Because we used to do a lot of analytics at that point of time, but that was not digitized, right? Now on the go, I can take a decision whether I have to procure something or I don't have to. Now, given the current scenario, how the price of the gold has shoot up, right? If you see a lot of companies, I'll say the gold miners or the retails, they were struggling, right? Because of the gold prices shoot up. If they have done a correct focusing of their hedging, because that's the play. And with that hedging aspects, if you have considered all those functional parameters or the attributes, which will lead into your process where we'll have a direct impact into a benefit. That's where your cost lies. That's where your business grows. Because I keep challenging to the CXOs, right? And I've been interacting with, I am not going to the numbers, but it is all the top CXOs I've been interacting with. Everyone says, well, I have to do a digital supply chain because that's a game today. I said, how matured your business processes are today? If you are a level of supply chain maturity at a level of 1 to 5, if the process is today at 1.5, can we do a digital transformation of supply chain in your business? No. It is a step up manner, right? So you have to leap in at a certain point of time, keeping in mind the cost aspect of it. So that's what I say, reimagine supply chain in the way that digital supply chain as a service. Thank you.
Thanks very much, XLRI, Shonu and team and everybody for inviting me for this session. It's a very exciting session. I've been doing this for about 25 years, supply chain primarily. I bring in a totally different perspective from my dear friends here, because I'm on the side where we do sell technology solutions in supply chain. So essentially what we do as an organization or as myself is build solutions which will help companies to optimize supply chain. So to excuse my different kind of view, sustainability as a word has been there for a quite long time, but it's a donkey which we are beating black and blue. One main reason is that the entire concept of sustainability can only be addressed if we will treat the cause, not the symptom. So if a supply chain is not sustainable, then it's the symptom, it's not the cause. So there are different areas where cause is impacting that symptom. Now, one of the few things which I would like to contribute here is look at the fundamentals of supply chain and logistics. If we talk about logistics, I'm sure you guys have heard about ROLA. ROLA is return on logistics and assets and so on and so forth. Now, internally, when we were discussing with the customer, we said, ideally, you should be having S-ROLA. So, sustainable ROLA. So, if we are going to not change the formula, then how are we going to achieve sustainability? Because I think the earlier panel also came up and talked about cost. See, at the end of the day, everything boils down to cost. Like Father George also mentioned about cost. So what is cost here? So at the end of the line, the entire industry is fighting for one or two key performance indicators. One is the top line, and other, the most important is the bottom line. Now, if you are pursuing supply chain, you would be constantly bombarded to reduce the increase the bottom line. At the same time, bring in efficiency in the supply chain and also maintain sustainability. Now, how are you going to do it? So there are answers, or there are some way to it. Few things we need to understand, or that's my perspective again. Sustainability is dynamic. Again, it is keep on going to change. The goalpost is keeping changing. So goalpost will not be remain the same. US debt, it's in shambles. The growth rates is down. Europe is dying. Germany is minus in GDP. China is facing challenges. All these manufacturing industries are all moving towards Asia. China is a bit of no-no, so they're going to Vietnam, they're coming to India. Again, we're talking about supply chain, de-dollarization, and so on and so forth. So are we ready when those kind of infrastructure needs to get built here? And then the concept of sustainability will also change considerably when we have huge transfers of such technology here. Few months back or a year back, automotive company had to shut down their production simply because they could not get some chipsets. I don't know how many of you are aware. They reduced their manufacturing, or they reduced the number of units they were building. So what I'm trying to say is, for those people who want to pursue supply chain, there are some experts who mentioned that 35% of the companies who are about 7 to 15 years old will either get sold, acquired, or closed in this coming decade if they don't optimize the supply chain. And sustainability would go hand in hand. So like I mentioned about S-ROLA, even in supply chain optimization, while we are building technology, we are trying to bring in, as Mr. Roy said, about process, people and technology together. So it's more of sustainability is more of a next practices rather than the best practices. There's something which we're talking about anticipating issues, anticipating the problems which our industry would face. Finally, sustainability is a macro level subject, but it has to be approached with few smaller steps. Maybe it starts with environment, then we start talk about social and governance. I think our industry is slowly getting matured or understanding the importance of this. So how we see it is that companies have to take smaller steps and then come to a level where they say, yeah, we are sustainable, we are green, our KPIs and KRAs are basically matching our supply chain, and hence we are sustainable. A simple point is how many companies are utilizing something called reverse logistics. Reverse logistics is one of the most powerful sustainable medium. I mean, how you make it sustainable. So just to add and not take too much of time, Priyanka, so I thought I'll just add my 2 cents to this. We can address these as questions going forward. Thank you.
Again on data. So how powerful is data in terms of the rise and fall of a company? I can tell you one example. 2004, I signed an LOI. Little did I know that the company which I'm signing an LOI with which will eventually turn out to be a company funded by Alibaba. So I signed an LOI with 197. 197 communication was into, the hello tunes, caller back tunes of those times in Airtel. You dial a number, you get a caller tunes and all. And it was all done by 197. So that was the power of data that 197 team used, to sell its stake to Alibaba. And what Alibaba needed Alibaba needed the mobile database to which they could market or sell their products and reach to the customers. And the whole interest of Alibaba lied into the database of all the customers. So that's how powerful data is in terms of sustainability. It can lead to rise and fall. Same time, the same data, if you overlook the data in terms of financing and loans, it will lead to the fall or decline of the organization.
I'll just add on one. When it comes to data, right? The data governance part. So the data is like everywhere you see there, you can collect some data. But what data you are collecting? How your source of the data is been triggering you to collect that points. You can have n number of data today, right? And everything is available in the public domain. But what data that you need to collect, how that can be governed in terms of I'm not going into the nitty-gritty of master data governance or architecture or a system context diagram with respect to supply chain. But yes, that where if you don't have a proper data governance structure today, then it is very difficult to reflect the data into any kind of engagement portal. That's where the supply chain lies today. Whether it is a customer engagement portal or even for an internal reporting portals, the data governance has a very pivotal role. That's what I need to add.
Wow, we got a lot of inputs. I think we touched upon so many things in the first round of the question itself, emphasizing on supply chain, data, analytics, leadership, as well as governance. I think that happens when you have industry leaders who have worked across all the industries and have such huge experience. So I think I got answers to some of the questions even without asking. So coming to the role of leadership, I think we touched upon it, but any specific strategies that is being adopted to strengthen the role in terms of employing these analytical capabilities in organizations?
So I'll take this question and then I can pass on to my co-panelists, right? So what we see in terms of when we are developing our target operating models, right? So you look into any kind of the processes, whether it is an as-is processes, how the current state lies today. The moment you go from the as-is to to-be, that's where your target operating model lies, right? And in terms of the leadership plays over there, because we are, I'm not sharing some of the things that what we do in IBM, but yes, because of the confidential contract, that's what we have. But when we go from the supply chain target operating models, we look at the various components, the 9 components, right? People, process, technology, leadership, culture, data, insights, analytics, and so on. When it comes to leadership as a decisions, right? When I look in terms of my attributes as a leader or what a CXO should pursue as a leader, that you have to be a persona-based supply chain model. You cannot have a supply chain for the person who is attending you at the gate as a gatekeeper, as well as the person who is delivering the processes in terms of the end product to a customer. It has to be a persona-based supply chain leadership decisions. So each person, when you analyze in the game of supply chain, they have different roles to play. That's what the leaders need to look around, because the person who is doing a computing of something or who is into the business of logistics, he mentioned about the reverse logistics, right? The returns and the reverse logistics, that's a cost. How you do your route planning, how you bring your supply chain visibility in terms of the products or the portfolios that you are handling today. And that has to be driven by our leadership capabilities, because that will have a direct impact to your customer, right? And for us, everyone, I think the customer we are serving, whether you are my customer or he is my customer, for this particular panel, they are the customer, right? What is the takeout for this panel? They might have come up with some expectations. How effectively each of us, as a persona, we were delivering our leadership thoughts to them. So think on those lines. So persona-based supply chain, that's where the leadership lies today. Pass on to you.
Any more additions to this?
Well, the question was more towards leadership and supply chain. So this had come in a different form in the earlier panel also. The importance of supply chain in an organization, like the CFO's role is no more an accounting role. He's a CEO now. The same way, supply chain is one of the most critical component of any company. So it covers, so if we understand supply chain, it starts at demand planning. The right at the step where what customer needs or customer wants, and the fulfillment of any product or services where it ends. This is the entire cycle of supply chain. Now, the leaders were more of addressing the small blocks of either fulfillment or either distribution or logistics. However, things have changed considerably. And if you notice, a lot of companies are looking at leaders who have gone through the supply chain grind to become the CEOs of organizations. Earlier, this was never thought of, where supply chain people are the CEOs or who run the company, simply because these individuals have understood the entire cycle of a survival of an organization, right from understanding demand, sales operation planning, execution, and then eventually fulfillment. So things are changing drastically, and it will continue to mutate constantly, this particular approach towards how supply chain is addressed. And this is the in thing going forward.
I would like to add here in terms of, if you really look at it, most of the bigger corporates you will go, they will have adopted technologies some way or the other. And most of the companies you will find there are ERPs. And these ERPs are something which are, they will have a lot of reports. Typical utilization of any ERP will be not more than 45 to 50%. The people will not know what kind of reports come out, what kind of a data comes out, how they can use it for the business. And you have chief procurement officers with their teams who are working. And then there is a technology team which reports to the chief technology officer. And the key is that you can do a lot of projects. You can do projects which are cross-functional. You can also have these cross-functional projects consisting of the chief procurement officer and the technology team. And these together should have those sustainability targets in terms of what kind of data can be taken, what kind of data can be analyzed. And then in terms of how do they make it a business priority? And sustainability is something we should not be talking at this age wherein we have all these disruptions which have happened. Let's try if we can make this as part from even the school level, and then so that people know this and this become institutionalized. Today, whether it is cleanliness or it is all inbuilt. So similarly, the sustainability is also one topic which has to be there in everyone, and that's how every leader has to take it for the future.
If I can add, ERP is a very favorite subject actually. If you guys have studied, understood what enterprise resource planning is, a misnomer. It was invented by one of those top 5 consulting companies who called it ERP. It's actually not an ERP. Fundamentally, most of the companies are using that application to address finance, sales, inventory management, and a bit of procurement. And it is not covering a lot of stuff. Now, if you want to, incidentally, we work with a lot of large companies, be it pharma or manufacturing companies, where we are automating their supply chain. In the context of ERP, have you noticed as supply chain or a general management person that 2 companies in the same industry do not have the same processes? There is a difference in process. The fundamental underlying framework would be the same. 2 pharma companies, underlying framework would remain the same, but the processes may differ because each of the organizations has adopted a process which they consider as a best practice during the growth stage, struggle stage, or whatever. So they have reached a level of maturity. Having said that, these companies want to adopt supply chain solutions which will be customized and configured to this best practice. So you can't actually cut paste that solution and apply to another pharma company. Yes, the framework will remain the same. So just to add, I mean, I think Rajiv said it well. I think we could take sustainability at a much more lower level, and that's how we grow. But this has become a trend wherein companies and organizations have a separate solution to address this, which is actually supposed to be the best of breed in that particular area of operation.
I'll add one thing, Priyanka, over here. He talks about enterprise resource planning, right? So today we talked about the enterprise supply chain planning, right? So ERP has moved to ESP, right? So that's how it is evolving. And when it comes to the enterprise supply chain planning, there is no difference between what a CFO does or a CPO does or a chief supply chain officer does. It has to be a one team who is playing from the end to end to make it enterprise lead to those requirements, right? So in terms of, I've seen many clients, they work in silos, to be honest. They say, no, I don't want to, the operation guys will say, no, I don't want to talk to the production planning and inventory control guys. Inventory will say, oh, you give me this logistics plan, I will execute. There is no such work that I am going to tell you, okay, I will give the delivery, I will deliver this material on this time because my operation guys has told this. So the integrated approach of the enterprise supply chain, which is really the heart of any enterprise to succeed today. Because today also, if I'm talking to some of the clients of mine where we are discussing on a lot of things, today people, one of the, I'm just not naming the client, but they're spending like $500 billion for putting up something. They want that a drone or a robot will deliver the last miles, right? It will be delivered through a drone, right? I'm not naming the client. That's where it is happening. And we were engaged into that kind of work. Now, when we ask, what is the priority? Who is going to buy this? Because someone who is really interested, either the processes are paralyzed, right? Because if I have to go for a last mile delivery through a drone, I need to know where are the obstacles that I am having today. Without engaging that kind of cost to supply chain, the cost component to supply chain, we need to understand whether that can be a sellable material to the person who is consuming that. So if you ask me, if you ask someone, when I was coming yesterday by the road from Ranchi to Jamshedpur, and the driver, we were having the discussion for 2.5 hours. Me and the chauffeur was driving me. Okay, continuously we were talking. So we were saying that how the changes has happened, right? So because I've seen, I was going around by round on this city on a cycle. I used to go to Dimla Lake on a cycle, right, in this city. Now he said that you don't have to go like those days because now the roads has been developed, through the jungle road has been developed, right? Through Dalma, I'm saying. He said the things has changed because people are paying for it. Unless until we pay for the product, who is going to consume that? Let us understand from that particular demand perspective. If I'm producing something, whether there is a recipient for it. That's what I mean to say over here.
Okay. So as I understand, collaboration is the key among the leadership positions to drive sustainability. So looking at the paucity of time, this will be the last question for the panel. And this question is for Rajiv sir. With the Indian government's initiative to reduce logistics costs significantly, what innovative strategies do you propose utilizing supply chain intelligence to achieve the latest sustainability objectives?
So one thing which I usually say is that government is always ahead. If we look at our private sector, government is today much ahead of what the private sector is doing. And if we just look at the national logistics policy, right now we are at 13 to 14%. The logistics cost is around 13 to 14%, and government within a couple of years want to bring it down to 8%. And how is this going to be possible? They want to implement this ULIP, which is Unified Link Interface Platform, wherein they want to bring all the agencies which are there into single platform. They also want to bring a lot of transparency within within these agencies, which is there. And then in terms of the data sharing, in terms of, I know the government has a lot to catch up in terms of the waterways and other things, because if we look at the goods transportation, it is primarily through sea till now, or through road right now. But waterways have to catch up in terms of how does this get unified. And in terms of, if we look at from a industry perspective, there are already a lot of tools which are there. And there are four major components which every industry has to control, is in terms of transportation, the packaging of the goods, the warehousing, and then the customer support. And these are the solutions in terms of whether it is predictive analytics, whether it is IoT, whether it is artificial intelligence. These are the things which are, you will always find small players who are doing it. As a corporate, you can run a co-project with them. They will be happy to help in terms of these things which are there. And also what government is doing is they are democratizing the overall tools which are there. Even the government interface like EDI for customs and all, these are the tools everybody can use, even a small player can use. And this is how the trends are changing. And as the previous panel also said, let's adopt the technology before it's too late. And I think the people in this room, today morning we were talking that besides the general management subjects, they have those things like IoT and other things which are there as part of their curriculum as electives. And these are the things which will take the supply chain forward.
Thank you, sir. So I would now like to open the floor for questions from students.
Very good afternoon, sir. I'm Mukesh Kunal. I have 11 years of experience in logistics supply chain. So my question to Amit sir or Rahul sir is that how can, like in a country like India, which is a hub for startups in the world, so how can companies, company in the manufacturing or non-tech startups can embrace sustainability, or part of its value chain partners can embrace sustainability in order to drive growth and to manage both the things at the same time? Like they can't have ERPs or all, because those are very costly inputs for them.
Great question. Great question. So this is the problem every startup has to, encounter all the time because of limited fund availability, seed capitals and all. So as I talked about digital roadmap, first of all, you need to understand that what is the need of the organization at that point of time, because every decision has to be best decision of its own time, right? When you start up, you decide that what is your strategic priority over a period of 5 years, say, take it this way. Then you set a roadmap that what all types of applications, tools that you're going to implement, right? If we are into telecom and we want to implement IoT-based energy management, telecom has one of the major components, two major elements there in telecom. which is also a pain area, is rental and energy, right? So there are various tools which can benchmark rentals also. I mean, why rental? Because 60% of your cost goes into the rentals and energy, right? How will you benchmark that? Even smaller companies are rising up, right? And they are benchmarking whether they are taking a site at the right place or not, at the pricing that which they are acquiring the site is right or not. How will they benchmark with the geolocation based model, right? Secondly, what tools they need to implement in terms of sensors, actuators, right? In terms of, the site operations and management. Now, it depends how much you want to invest and what is your payback. So it all depends on the total cost of ownership over a period of time and what is the payback for the technology that you are going to adopt. Now, if I want to adopt an IoT for my site, forget us, because we are basically carbon neutral, and that way we do not have any diesel sets on our sites right now. But at the same time, the operators who have DG sets at site have their strategic priority to implement the Internet of Things, the connected tools and devices which can sense the right time on which the diesels need to be filled at site for the network uptime, which is important parameters for the customer, experience. Second is the battery management system, the lithium-ion batteries. And to all of you should be aware that when we shifted from VRLA, the wall-regulated lead-acid batteries in telecom, to lithium-ion batteries, the basic component into it is the battery management system, which because of it, otherwise it will not work. So we have to see how much you're going to, spend on the BMS, local sourcing, or importing those BMS, and who is going to provide that software. Third aspect is, predictive modeling, right? When do we need to, maintain our ACs, right? How much do we need to automate in the smart city project, which is an integration of both technology and the automations, right? So whether we can implement climate control, the automated lighting control, or different security cameras, everything can be remotely monitored and controlled. So a lot of startups are coming up and they are setting their own strategic priorities, setting up their own digital roadmap, and then deciding on whatever capital is available in hand, they have to spend from that at the same time. And as they grow, they can build upon it. Hope I answered your question.
Maybe I just wanted to add a couple of points here. So I think technology is the key, and without technology, sustainability cannot be achieved. But I think technology is not the only one. The human intelligence together with technology is going to solve the problem. And technology is not required to be always expensive, because there are a lot of startups, as he said, a lot of startups are coming, and startups are going to solve the problem of the startups. And we can really see clearly that ecosystem is getting built. So Rajiv very well mentioned ULIP, which is, I think, such a wonderful initiative taken by government. And there are a lot of startups who are integrating with ULIP to provide the complete transparency of their shipments, of their advanced licenses, their import compliances, everything, which is really going to be transformation in this industry. And obviously that's not a costly affair, right? So we met one of the tech company based in Gujarat, and they were ready to provide the entire solution of the import and export compliances end-to-end process without any ERP, with the complete visibility, integrated with the custom systems, with all the airlines, with all the shipping containers. Everything is so wonderfully linked, and you won't believe the cost is not even 4 lakhs for the entire year. So that kind of transformation is happening. So that myth is that we have to invest heavily in technology is a myth. You have to implement, you need to depend on the SAP to transform things, which I think is the traditional way of looking at things.
I just wanted to add, as I mentioned, so ease of implementation with any kind of technology enablers, right? So definitely the cost is a factor, but a small kind of automation, process automation will lead to a lot of things, because that's hardly any investment a company does today. So because if you look into both the aspects of the business imperatives that you are driving today, in terms of your process imperatives, right? What the benefit that you are going to get out of it, as Rajiv mentioned, right? And government is funding a lot of projects today. And actually that is also an enabler in terms of the transformation of supply chain, right? Because unless and until you get that sponsorship support, it is very difficult to implement anything, for whether it is for a nationwide organization or for a private organization, for anyone, you need a sponsor to do that. So as long as you can produce your business case to the sponsor, sponsors always look that minimum investment with the maximum return. That's what they look. And they always go by what is the business imperative that you are going to give me back. So if you can help the sponsors to understand your requirement and articulate that in a proper way, that's what I would suggest you guys to look for it. And I don't know how many of you are dealing with the secondary research in terms of the benchmarking. Like there are a lot of reports which is available in Hackett or say in IBM we does for the Institute of Business Values, and that is those reports are available in the public domain. We do all the benchmark based on the regions, based on the industries, based on the processes. Those are easily available. If you go through that, you can easily understand and report back to the organization.
I'll just take one more example to here, just a live example. We all know when COVID was there and vaccines were manufactured, there was a very big eminent problem that how those vaccines will be distributed to such a diverse country and with such a low infrastructure country. But see, India became the example. How? Because a lot of startups joined the hand to transform the technology, because vaccines are temperature controlled, right? And India did not have that bandwidth to invest so much on the cold storages. So a lot of startups, they joined hand and they innovated the technology to distribute those vaccines to the last mile, to the villages, and you saw the success.
I think we can move to the next question.
Hello, panelists. My name is Deepak Maharana. I've got 10 years plus experience in metal and mining sector. So my question is to Mr. Rahul Sama. More pointed to the fact that you said that you have made transition to the sea mode of transportation, and that to 98%. So that's a major chunk. So my point is just a one layer deep, like how you come up with this particular goal of switching to transport, given that there are a lot many business challenges, as I understand, from the this medicine or drugs domain. So as you rightly said, the useful life of the medicine gets shortened by 1 to 1.5 months. There are geopolitical challenges, and also it's a very urgent need sort of material. So you are losing on that front as well. Also medicine is a kind of a very lightweight sort of product, I can guess. So I don't know what much footprint you would have, a carbon footprint you would have reduced by switching to the sea mode of transportation. So how did you guys come up with this particular goal? What was your plan B mechanism to cope up with this business challenges? Thank you.
No, I think I'll address this question with the leadership, I think, which Priyanka asked earlier, that the commitment has to come from the leadership. And when I said human intelligence is very important to be combined with technology to sort out any problem, because fundamentally you need to address what the problem is and how can I solve the problem. If you have that commitment, there's no problem which cannot be solved. I gave the example of vaccine. I gave the example of sea shipment, which we achieved. Now our cycle, as I said, was like 12-month cycle. And then if you ship through sea, it will be like 45, 60 days. Then it goes to the market. It takes another 2 months. So it takes 6 months to reach to the patient, right? It was not an easy task. And there were a lot of hindrances and challenges and from everywhere that this is not possible. But the way, then it was a commitment from the leadership. Then I think Rudra also mentioned that it requires a collaborative effort from all the departments, right? Whether it is quality, whether it is production, whether it is supply chain, everyone. Only logistic or supply chain cannot achieve this. So first of all, what we did was we shortened the entire life cycle of the product. So instead of 12 months, can I
shorten it to 11 months or 10 months. And then it needed a lot of planning to ensure, because if you want to ship because through air you can ship like few vials, right? But with sea you need the entire container, which you said how much carbon footprint you reduced. So first of all, we consolidated all the demand from all the markets, and then we ensured that obviously there will be, like, if there are 50 shipments going through air, there will be only 2 shipments going through sea. And for that, we highly optimized our demand forecasting from 60 market units globally, which are there. And it was a collaborative effort that we kind of consolidated all those orders into few orders. That was the fundamental thing which we did. Second was the optimization of the production cycle, which we did. Third was, obviously we had to maintain stocks at the market units for that period. And fourth is, because it's a long cycle, 12 months, so you have to procure raw material, you have to produce, then quality, validation, regulatory requirements, everything. It's a long cycle. So obviously we had to manage our entire procurement to production cycle in a way that we could shorten it. And finally, obviously, we, in the few of the product, we filed with the regulatory authorities to extend the life of the product, to increase the life of the product, so that we can achieve our sustainability target and cost improvement as well. So there were multiple actions, but I think the key is whenever you guys will also join the industry, there would be similar problems and people will say it's not possible. You do your maths, do your cost benefit analysis. But if this is clear that we have to achieve that, obviously there are always the ways, and the collaborative mechanism is the only way to achieve it.
Hello, sir. Thank you for the wonderful discussion today. My name is Atul Shrivastava. I have 13 years of experience in automotive sector. My question to you all is, as sir was telling that people are working in silos in different companies. Now, my organization, I have seen that supply chain is working separately in SAP Ariba, R&D is working separately in PLM, and CRM for all the marketing and other side service side. Now all of them are working in silos, and that is why more gaps happen between the decisions in between that. Similarly, the same problems are told that semiconductor shortage was there, then there was an oversupply for the period of time. So typically a life cycle assessment can be enabled through once these things are connected together. What is our views on that, and could you provide some insights on that?
So I'll make it very precise one and a discrete one, right? So when you look for those things, working in a silo, first thing that you need to do, you understand the integration catalog of the requirement. So when I say the integration catalog, say for example, you mentioned, right? So it is in CRM, MS Dynamics, SAP, whatever it is. So you understand the data source, you understand the architectural view of the data, then you understand the integration, design and integration catalog, right? So from where my data will flow, whether it is from a, say for a small Excel file, it will go to my Sugar CRM or not, right? It will, from Sugar CRM, it will go to my cloud or not. So please understand and design an integration catalog between those data points. That's the first thing you need to do, right? I'm just sharing my experience, how we design those perspectives, because that helps. And unless and until you share that with the stakeholder of that particular data, because he or she might not understand the requirement properly unless and until you present that, yes, I need this data because, and I can integrate that to something, because he is the man who is doing a lot of things in the technology perspective, right? And other things, I will also say that there's a big gap today in the time and series. If we look, right, the change management aspect, that is very critical in terms of the changing anyone who is working in a present supply chain context. It is not a lift and shift model, right? It is a transformational change. See, if you ask me, when I was in the steel plant, I was working for ArcelorMittal, which is that time Mittal Steel. I have been into all the difficult and most, I will say, the most sensational places in the world, whether it is Bosnia, Libya, Kazakhstan, Mexico, and all. So I spent my life 2 years in Caribbean as well. So the transformational change has to take place. I'm just giving a small example. In the year of 2011 and 12, when I was 2 years in Caribbean, I was seeing the people standing in that long queue outside the bank. Okay. Then I asked, today we were in a digital banking. Why such things are happening here? Because I was setting up the consulting business for IBM over there. So I asked the people who were standing in the queue, they said, no, we enjoy standing here, listening music and having a thrilling time, right? A glass of beer in the hand. They're standing in the queue with a passbook in hand. They will wait for 2 hours, 3 hours, because for them, the time doesn't matter. They want an enjoyment of the life. You know, the bar are closed only for 1 hour in Caribbean. 23 hours is operational in Caribbean. The first day I went to Caribbean, I was in Trinidad and Tobago. And the next week when I met the president of Trinidad and Tobago, he said, can we go for a lime? I said, yes, why not? I thought in the morning 6 o'clock meeting, I'll get a lime water, hot water with a lime and juice. He offered me a glass of beer. So unless and until you understand the culture, you cannot adopt the change. You are not in the process of business, to be honest. Exactly, if you don't have the integration catalog, that's where I have integrated myself with the process over there to understand the agility of the process, right? Because we have to integrate. We cannot work in silos. Yeah, I've seen people working in silos, killing the process because all are stalwarts. You ask me anyone, I will say any industry. So what I look first thing in any process, I'm just giving an example because being a metallurgist, went to the banking industry when I joined IBM, doing all my, and then Airtel was my client, right, at that point of time. So I worked all across the industries. And when it came to one of my travel and transportation industry, so United Airlines was one of my client at that point of time. So they said that we were struggling to come up with a customer satisfaction level. And we were at only 72%. I said, you are having a customer satisfaction 72%. I said, I look at you and I look in a different way. I say your dissatisfaction level is at 28%. So similar things, and so as you improve the dissatisfaction processes to monitor that, that means you are eventually having the customer satisfaction in the higher side, right? So I don't know if you guys always look for an MAPE, the mean absolute percentage of error, because people look, okay, I have done a forecasting of with an 80% accuracy. What is the MAPE for that? So if you are bringing your MAPE down, automatically your forecasting will be very strong. So I'm not saying that I'm a negative visionary person, but I look how to fix the negative things rather than fixing the positive thing in the process.
If I can add here, the possibility of having so many silos is also the reason where different departments would have taken different decisions at different points of time. And that's why they have different applications to solve different problems. So this also stems out from one thing, that the organization at the top level doesn't have a vision or a goal holistically, because at the end, as he said, data is everything. Data can make or break the organization. So if we have to have a very strong analytics, predictive analytics, all these silos have to be connected to each other through integration, whatever the solution be. And that has to be driven from the very top so that, you know, you have this bridge across silos.
I'll just add one more thing. This is a very interesting thing that we brought it up, right? It is not about only integration catalog, right? So data hierarchy is also dependent on a lot of things, because I have seen people when they report to their management, right?
So, and it's a very funny story. A plant was operational, it was running successfully, everything was fine. Suddenly, a person came with his analytics mindset, with all the data that he had plugged from somewhere. He said, the plant is going to stop and it is going to, because that time we were having, because we were running sustainability for a long time, right? Carbon emission and all. Steel plant guys are very, very hard. Okay. And I've been into the steel plant all across, from the blast furnace to the end product. So he came and he reported to Mr. Mittal, I'm just saying, with this analytics, and he was jumping to everyone. What the hell you guys are working here, right? My plant is going to blast in few minutes. I said, what data he has reported, you know? He has picked up some historical trends from somewhere. He compared that with the current scenario and he reported back with the, so that's where you're giving a wrong message or the communication to the leadership. You have to be very effectively handling the data because sometimes it can happen at devastating effects. Right? In the COVID time, you have seen, right? People were reporting in a different, and that's the beauty of our social media. So we were getting all the feeds with the wrong inputs. And when I was on the job, because that's a philanthropic work, what I do, and we were serving almost like 6.5 lakhs families as an alumnus, right? In Karnataka, we were serving during the COVID time. We were the first with XLRI and with the Jesuit Alumni Association. We built up the first COVID care center in the country in St. Joseph in Bangalore. Okay. And I don't know if you got the message during that time. If I don't know, because XLRI and a lot of alumni from XLRI was working with us. We did serve 6.5 lakhs families for 8 months. Okay, and with all the medicine that we used to get from you guys, because I know some of these good colleagues, so we used to get at no cost. You know what was the market was that point of time? They was giving a wrong interpretation of a lot of things, which was a deadly effect on the supply chain. We were, and that was the entire supply chain planning was done in a different way. It is not a single man show. We were sourcing things, we were planning it out, then we were delivering to the destination at port in the different ways, right? So it is port to port or a port to destination kind of scenario where you have various touch points, right? And that touch points has to be really, really effectively managed with an integrated supply chain planning. That's what I can say. Is a continuous integrated supply chain planning has to bring it up.
Let me ask you a straight question. After passing out from XLRI, would you like to be a supply chain leader working in silos? Absolutely. You answered yourself. So it's also on leadership. How do you drive it? Through your own leadership, your own persona. You want to work in silos, or you want to, work in a collaborative way, right from design inception to sourcing to deliveries, right? It all depends on your leadership.
With this, we come to the end of this panel discussion. I have some points which are my key takeaways from this discussion. The first one is Rajiv sir mentioned about reporting as a backbone. The second key takeaway is T1 should be prioritized above L1. Rudra sir mentioned dash over shash, and Amit sir mentioned about understanding the roadmap of technology. And Srinivas sir emphasized on data is everything. So it was an honor to moderate this panel discussion. And I would now like to hand over to our hosts. And may I have a huge round of applause for the panel.
I think Priyanka also needs a round of applause from because she has done a great job, right?
we would like to extend our sincerest gratitude for your invaluable contributions and insights shared during today's discussion on supply chain intelligence, redefining sustainability through advanced analytics. We are thankful for your time, expertise, and commitment to driving positive change in the field of supply chain management.
In appreciation for your valuable contribution, we would like to express our gratitude by presenting you with a small gift to remember your time with us here. I'd request Shonu sir to present our guests with the mementos as we call upon them. Mr. Rajiv Kumar Tukral, board member, strategy and growth advisor at multiple organizations. Mr. Rahul Sharma, CEO and VP Supply Chain, Fresenius Kabi Oncology Limited. Mr. Amit Raman Jha, Chief Supply Chain Officer, Crest Digital Private Limited.
Mr. Rudra Shankar Roy, Global Supply Chain, SME and Process Transformation, IBM Thought Leader and Academic Ambassador at IBM Consulting. Mr. Srinivas Kumar, Director at Templegate Technologies and Services Private Limited. With that, I would now like to invite our colleague Poonam Shri to present the vote of thanks and conclude the conclave. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mehak. I'm going to keep this very short, but it's very important for me to thank a couple of people here. Thank you, all our panelists. We know that we are what an average of the people that we meet. Without being in your presence, we wouldn't have the experience of learning all the things that you've given to us. And knowing that this is also our last conclave, I would like to also thank every other panelist who have come here and graced this panel. Special mentions to all the participants offline and online who have contributed. And please, can you applause? Yeah. So to all the participants offline and online who have engaged a lot throughout. Thanks to all the faculty. We don't thank them enough, so here it is. Thanks to Father Donald George, Sanjay Patro sir, Sunil Sarangi sir, the placement office, Shonu sir, for always supporting us through our panel discussions. Thanks to all the committees who have put in all the hard work to make every event successful. I want to specially special call out for the facilities team, Felix sir, the photographer, who have, without them, this would not have been possible. The IT team, special mention to the Conclave committee, the social media team, and each and every member who has engaged on this platform. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Thank you. And one last time, thank you for coming up.